Welcome everybody. Apologies for the couple-minute delay. We'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Or like a motion to approve the agenda for October 10th, 2024 as presented. With Director Ponder. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Up next we have the Student Board Representative, Ms. Jolis.
Thank you, President Bertrand. We are excited to introduce our Student Board Representative for October. As you know, and you hear me say every month, the purpose of the Student Board Rep program is to honor and recognize talented students, elevate student voice, and provide growth opportunities in the areas of public speaking, leadership, and governance. Students are selected for this honor by their principal with input from the student body, and they have an opportunity to prepare and deliver a short speech to the board and public that is focused on their school or the district. And with that, I'll invite Principal Rob Goff to the podium to introduce our Student Board Rep from Francis Howell Union.
Thank you. Good evening, Board. It's my pleasure to introduce Jackson Sudrock as the senior representing Francis Howell Union this evening as Student Board Representative. Jackson's the son of Joe and Kara Sudrock. Jackson attended Daniel Boone, Francis Howell Middle, Francis Howell High on his journey to Francis Howell Union. From the first day that Jackson walked into Francis Howell Union, he's just a walking example of respect for others, taking personal responsibility, and his work ethic is something that we've all noticed. His mother, Kara, said that he has a spark back since coming to Francis Howell Union, which is a statement that means a lot to us as a staff. And we're proud to see Jackson and where he goes from this point in the future, and is honored to have him as our representative this evening. So Jackson Sudrock.
Good evening. My name is Jackson Sudrock, and thank you for letting me be here tonight, representing the place that fits me best, Francis Howell Union High School. Francis Howell Union has been a very helpful choice for my schooling, making sure I can actually get out and graduate. When I was a freshman in high school at Francis Howell High, I knew that school was not for me. I was causing trouble and then, not being a great student, not being the best I could be. I made it through okay, and then when sophomore year hit, I had worked the whole summer and didn't want anything to do with school. So I messed around a lot and then wound up in AIP a couple times. And then
Tell them what AIP is.
Alternative intervention program for getting in trouble. And the last time I got sent there, it required a COC meeting. And I mentioned to Mormon that I would like to come try Union, hoping it would be a better fit for me. And then while I was in, the time I was at Union, I came and visited Mr. Goff and Miss Ewing a couple times, and they helped me get in. They offered me to stay the last part of my sophomore year, I guess. And I wanted to go back to Howell and prove I could get it done without causing any trouble. And I did that and started my junior year at Francis Howell Union doing the Missouri Options program. It has been the best thing that's happened to me. It's made me way better than what I was 7 months ago, the first time I got sent to Union. And yeah, I knew that freshman year I would end up here most likely, just from messing around too much and not being the best I could be. The environment is just so much better, much more understanding, much more hope-giving than at Francis Howell was for me, at least. And they see that I'm not college fit. I want to go in the workforce. So.
Not that you're not college fit, but you're choosing to go into work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I wouldn't have been able to graduate if I didn't graduate on time. If I didn't come here, I would have been held back or had to go to summer school, which I wouldn't have been able to do because I would have been working too much. So now I'm finishing up my last few classes here at Francis Howell Union, so hopefully graduate soon. Thank you.
You can go, yeah, you can.
See? There you go.
So Jackson, we are glad that you are here. You are part of this meeting. Feel free to share observations or questions. The only thing you cannot do is vote, but you are part of this gathering representing Francis Howell Union and the rest of the whole school district. Thank you so much, Jackson.
Welcome, Jackson. Up next, we have the spotlight for the Carpentry Youth Apprentice Schools.
For our spotlight presentation this evening, we are shining a light on our Carpentry Youth Apprenticeships. This program offers students real-world experience and career-ready skills, setting them up for success in the trades. And the two professionals at the center of this work are Ms. Katie Vargas, College and Career Specialist, and Dr. Kara Dalton, Practical Arts Content Leader, and I'll invite them to come forward to tell us more about the work that they're doing. Good evening, board and patrons. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm Dr. Kara Dalton, the Practical Arts Content Leader and one of our coordinators and champions for this youth apprenticeship work. We have long at Francis Howell offered opportunities for students to learn outside of the classroom and get hands-on opportunities in their field of study. And we're really excited to now be an official U.S. Department of Labor apprenticeship site and beginning our journey with our carpenters apprentices that we are going to honor here tonight, as well as some of our industry partners. So for our carpentry program specifically, just to give you a little background on what these students have accomplished before they have hit their work site. These students are currently in 12th grade. They were entering 12th grade when they applied for the program. They had to have completed Woodworking 1, Woodworking 2, and also get their OSHA 10 certification, which is built into that second year class to be able to be on the job site. And they had to have their credits in really great shape because they leave school early, either after second or third hour, so they can spend a big part of their day on site. Carpenters work the same hours that we're in school, and so we need those kids to be able to be on site for several hours to get that great experience. And so these students are out with a carpenter now. They are working almost every day unless the weather keeps them in, and just getting this great hands-on learning and a acceleration to a career path that is really meaningful. It's high demand, it's good wages, good benefits, without having to go to college or pursue a degree in something that maybe doesn't interest them. They're getting a chance to see really firsthand, is this for me? Some of our kiddos, they worked those couple weeks in the summer that was blisteringly hot where some people like me, we ran to our cars and were complaining that it was too hot. And those poor kiddos were out on site for several hours working and learning in the heat. They will also be out in the snow, so they will experience that throughout the year. So they're seeing firsthand, not just a one day or a video or something like that, is this for me? Without having to put a lot of money and many, many years in to find that out. Our students also go through an application process. They first go through that with us, and then we can basically say, okay, you meet the criteria to be a candidate. And then they go through the same application and interview process with the company that they would if they were an adult somewhere off the street applying to the company. So they get a chance to kind of do some of those adult grown-up skills that we all do, and they have to learn somewhere. And so for some of them, this has been their first job opportunity, so it's been a good experience for them. We want to celebrate, we had several students interview with the company. 5 were offered positions. And one declined because he decided he was actually going to heavy machinery. So great, he had a couple different options in front of him. We had 2 that started in June and worked for the summer, and then 2 that started in August. And a couple of those have decided after some time on site that this wasn't quite for them and decided to pull back and take a full load of classes in something else. And while in some ways it looks like, oh, you already had 2 kids quit, those kids got an opportunity to see firsthand, is this going to be for them? And so they realized that, no, we're not quite the right fit for me. So I'm back taking other classes, and the kid who worked all summer, he made some really good money for the summer and got some great experience, and is now pursuing something else. So even if students don't complete the whole year, they stay in the career path for a long time, this is just a great learning opportunity for them to explore this in a meaningful way. And so
we couldn't do this without wonderful, wonderful industry and community partners. That's one of the cool things about apprenticeships is we're getting kids out with the companies that they run our local economy, and they benefit our community so much and benefit our district and our region. And so this doesn't happen without them. And I'm going to let Katie talk a little bit about the roles of those community partners before I talk again about our students and we bring them up.
A little shorter. Thank you, Kara. So as Kara said, we could not do registered youth apprenticeship full stop without some amazing partnerships that give our students an opportunity and a chance to prove themselves and to develop those students and grow them in their skill set. So we make sure that when we are selecting industry partners that we know they're going to love on our kids just like we do here in the district, that they're going to keep our kids safe, and that they're going to give them plenty of opportunity just as they would any other employee on their payroll. So we make sure, the beauty of apprenticeship is that we as educators take a step back and say, you are the experts. What do we need to make sure our kids know to be successful before they ever walk onto your job site? And then what can we be doing to support you in developing them? So they help us with our goals and objectives. They do provide the interviews, as Kara stated, so that they get a real-world experience with a real-world employer. They onboard and provide them entry-level skill sets and development. And then really what I think is the most valuable and what I'm most grateful for is that they provide that one-to-one supervision and mentorship on the job site. So our apprentice has one supervisor helping him, one journeyman helping him. That's it. That's his whole mentee role. So they get a lot of individualized attention. And then the communication throughout the year with us is also important. So if there's any hiccups along the way, we can help mitigate those. We can sit down and conference with families and parents if needed, and we can get involved so that we can ensure the success. I would say, oops, I'm going backwards, I think. There we go. What we want to highlight specifically tonight, and we will call Joe Huber up here in a moment. He has been instrumental in this work. He's the hiring manager for Contec. Contec was the very first industry partner in our region that gave us our big break. As you all know, this is our very first registered youth apprenticeship. And these are our very first apprentices. This is our very first partner, and they have been more than gracious with their time and energy in devoting to make sure that our kids are successful on the job sites. They've been around since, I think, 1985. They provide a family-owned business atmosphere, and you can certainly see that in all of the attention and care and safety they provide for our students. This is a unique apprenticeship in that we really have two partners. We have our employer, Contec, and we have the Carpenters, the Mid-America Carpenters Union here in St. Louis, because again, we wanted to ensure our students were on the best of the best job sites, so we partnered with our union, local union, to make sure they were paired with a signatory contractor, which Contec is. And the beauty of that is our students are earning a great wage. They are potentially earning high school credit, and they are counting all of the on-the-job site hours towards their apprenticeship journeyman. So if they choose when they graduate from high school to head into the union as a journeyman, they are essentially a whole year ahead of the ball game. So we could not have done this without Mid-America Carpenters. They have been patiently waiting for us to develop our Woodworking 1 and 2 program to align with industry standards. That was 6 years in the making, and we've gotten there thanks to them. And they make sure our students are trained and issued the OSHA 10 certification. So they've just been absolutely instrumental, and we could not be more thankful for their partnership.
All right, we went out a couple weeks ago and visited our kids on the job sites and took some pictures of them. And it was a great day. One, it was beautiful, so not like the hot days that those poor kids were working in the beginning of the school year. It was a great reminder for us as kind of why we do this and really getting to see them hands-on and working and learning on site. And if we didn't know who they were, because we know them, we wouldn't have known and picked out that they were the students. They were right in with the crew and working and doing a job of a first-term apprentice. So Austin's not here with us tonight, but he was working on a job site over in kind of off of Bryan Feisey, new development over there. And as someone who is not a carpenter, I'm getting to see them raise the big part of the roof on. Now, just assure you, our kids are not on the roof. First-term apprentices don't go on the roof. Students don't go on the roof, but there's a lot of roles that still need to be played, important roles in getting all of that up and situated that the kids can be on the ground safely. So Austin was helping do that day. Never made me realize how little I actually know about construction until I watched this happen. And we sat there for a long time because we were just as fascinated by the whole process.
Big boom, big crane.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
It was really neat.
Brian Nolan from FHC, he is here with us tonight. He'll come up in just a minute. They're working on a development over in, is that
Way in.
Lake
St. Louis.
Lake St. Louis. Sorry, I don't know all the lines out here. They were a little different spot in the process. They had the floor of the second floor done, so they were actually moving up and doing some of the framing into the rooms on the second floor. So he was up, but he was not any unsecure. I felt so bad we showed him there and they were actually kind of still on their lunch, but he and his crew were both really generous and they realized that, they knew we were coming, but that we had arrived during lunch. Like, we'll finish up, come on, let's gear back up. So we kind of got to watch them get all their stuff back on, and they said jumped right in, knew exactly what his job was, and jumped right to it, and just treating our kids like just respected employees. And it was really great to see kind of all that come together, kind of the fruition of several years of work, and see them with smiles on their faces too. I don't know if the pictures caught all the smiles because they realized they were having a picture taken, but there were definitely a lot of smiles from those kids when they were out working on the site. All right, so if we could, turn it over to you. Yeah, Joe, Chris, Ryan, if you guys want to kind of start heading this way.
Board members, while they come up, I just, Dr. Dalton started by saying that they're the champions, and that really undersells the work that she and Ms. Vargas have done, that they have been the driving force in bringing these opportunities to the Francis Howell School District. We were honored to have the Department of Labor here a couple months ago announcing that we were a registered youth apprenticeship school district. I shared with you that Dr. Buckman and I got to attend an event where Katie and Kara were recognized just last week as now being coordinators for the program. And we think about community involvement. This is an amazing collaboration between businesses such as Contech working directly with us, working with school districts throughout the county, the Department of Labor, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the Economic Development Council of St. Charles. So it really is an opportunity to do amazing things for our students. Our mission to prepare students to be lifelong learners, regardless of the path they choose. So Jackson shared what his path is, what the best path is for him, and this is just another amazing opportunity for our students. And so we need to make sure that we thank Dr. Dalton and Ms. Vargas for all of their work with us.
Thank you for your kind words. They're very unnecessary, but thank you. Okay, so without further ado, I know this was a very long spotlight. I'm sorry for that. We would like to thank both Joe Huber and Chris Adair from the Carpenter Apprenticeship Program and Joe Huber from Contech, in appreciation of your unwavering commitment to empowering youth through the Registered Youth Apprenticeship Carpentry Program. We want to publicly express our gratitude and appreciation. Your dedication to fostering skill development, providing valuable mentorship, and creating opportunities for the next generation of carpenters is truly commendable. Through your support, you have not only shaped the future of aspiring tradespeople, but have also contributed to the growth and sustainability of our community. Your investment in youth education and vocational training exemplifies excellence in leadership and community engagement. Thank you for being a champion of youth apprenticeship and for your remarkable contributions to a brighter future. And then last but certainly not least, we do have one of our apprentices here, this Ryan Nolan, who was out on the Highway Inn site from Francis Howell Central. And so Ryan is joined here with his parents. If he'd like to come forward, we'd love to present the certificate to him. And there you are, you're hiding. You're hiding. You would much rather be on a job site, I'm sure. Brian, in recognition of your dedication, commitment, and skill development in the carpentry trade, we commend you for your outstanding performance and contributions to the Francis Howell School District Registered Youth Apprenticeship Program. Congratulations.
Yep, the board always stands on the back here.
We stand up first. Guest of honor right here. Yep. Dad, you want to go on the other side of them? Perfect. Great. Stand on here.
Next, we have patron comments. During patron comments, residents of the district and staff members are invited to address the Board of Education on issues related to the school district. Speakers are called forward in the order of sign up, and each speaker has 3 minutes to make their remarks. Please remember that only one speaker is allowed at the podium at a time, and combining time or giving your time to someone else is not permitted. The board appreciates that you have taken the time to come this evening, and we value both your input and perspective. I would like to remind everyone that we expect the speakers will remain civil and respectful in their remarks. If anyone fails to comply with board policies, regulations, and rules, we reserve the right to cut those 3 minutes short. We welcome Ken Gontars.
Board, Superintendent, good evening. First, congratulations to the Francis Howell School District for being ranked in the top 10 in the state. Nice job. Thank you. Tonight, ask yourself if the following actions have moved our school district forward. Would you call it forward to engage a compliant local news media to accuse the school board of allowing hate speech, thus fanning the racial flames of the community without first checking with the district lawyers, the superintendent, the policy committee, every school board member, or the district's communication director to see if it were true? Our school board would never allow, insinuate, tolerate, let alone approve such absurdity. Considering the safety and privacy of all students, would you call it forward to demand boys and girls middle schools locker rooms and bathrooms? Would you call it forward to allow gender reassignment surgery for kids who are 15 years old without parental notification or parental approval? Would you call it forward to allow gender reassignment hormone therapy for kids 14, again without parental notification or approval? Would you call it forward to sue a school board for potentially millions of dollars for wanting to implement a locker room and bathroom policy that ensures the safety and privacy of all students? Would you call it forward to use over 90 gender pronouns? Would you call it forward to have past school board, which allowed every PAC but one to speak at school board meetings and then had to be sued so that every First Amendment right of free speech was protected? Would you call it forward to have a pastor who is a school board member state as fact versus opinion that the Bible speaks of oral sex and sex toys? Would you call it forward to have our libraries mobbed with books with illustrations of teenage girls engaging in sex with each other, oral sex with each other? Would you call it forward for the past president of the FHSD Teachers Union to engage in an apparent unethical quid pro quo conversation with a school board member to secure the union's endorsement? Would you call it forward to pay a self-proclaimed expert of critical race theory $15,000 and then deny the community that the curriculum he produced did not produce critical race theory? Would you call it forward to eliminate challenge courses in the name of equity, thus denying gifted students of advanced educational opportunities. Indeed, let's truly continue forward.
Thank you. Your
by
time is
focusing
up.
on academic excellence, highest educational standards, and the best.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Up next, we welcome Chris Brooks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Always enjoyable to be here at board meetings. Tonight, I'd like to address Director Blair's last-minute amendment forbidding hate speech, false science, and false history instructional materials from the meeting 2 months ago, which he just removed last month after it had gone through legal review. In that meeting 2 months ago, Mr. Blair had spent the discussion around the previous policy changes, complaining that they should have gone through committee and legal review, that he should have had more time to discuss them and wanting definitions. Then a few minutes later, he turns around and presents an amendment that didn't have any prior notice on the second reading of the policy, with no committee or legal review, with ambiguous language and no terms defined. You might want to see a chiropractor about the whiplash from that turnaround. I suspect Mr. Blair was trying to use this as a way to illustrate his opposition to the changes in the challenged materials policy of the vicinity. What it really illustrated was he's interested in playing political games, virtue signaling, rather than doing the work of the board and considering the welfare of students. But this is not a game. This is serious business and requires serious people to do it right. So let's be clear. It doesn't matter how carefully you define hate speech, false science, or false history. The phrases themselves are thought-terminating cliches. What that means is they attempt to provoke an emotional response to end critical thought and discussion on a topic. Look how you can use those in the meeting, saying that every right-thinking person would be opposed to hate speech, right? No further discussion needed. And that's counter to the idea of developing critical thinkers. Critical thinkers need to be able to examine all ideas, evaluating the basis for those ideas, whether they're true or false. I'm not sure why this seems very difficult for some people to understand, but in a public education environment, you can't forbid ideas you don't like, no matter what they are. You can say you desire to protect students from those ideas, but such idea cocooning is like helping break the egg when a chick is trying to get out of it. The chick will die if you do that because it hasn't been properly strengthened before it gets out of the egg and gets into the world. Students not exposed to distasteful or wrong ideas rarely grow into critical thinkers because the process of disproving those bad ideas is essential to education. I recall an elementary school project one of my daughters did a number of years ago where the teacher presented in a professional way an intentionally false scientific idea as true, in fact. And the students had to go through the process of debating and deliberating why that was wrong and how they would determine that. Under Mr. Blair's amendment, that instructional material would not have been allowed. And before the critics of the recent policy changes for obscene material bring this up, note the distinction between debating and discussing ideas and having erotic elf porn available in school libraries. One is protected by the Supreme Court, one's not. Justice requires lawyers speaking on both sides of an issue, no matter how awful the crime or the defendant. Critical thinking requires discussions of all sides of an idea, no matter how wrong one of those may be. It doesn't require teachers to introduce an obviously wrong fact as truth, but you can't just forbid the idea from being in the material. I invite you to get some education on the issue, sir.
Next, we welcome Amy Grider.
We have two Amy G's as patron comments, and it really threw me off at first.
I thought I just signed up twice.
Me too, girl, me too. Hello, everybody, to everyone in the room and everyone watching remotely. So remember when board meetings were pretty mundane, focused on a steady agenda of budget reviews, curriculum enhancements, and advancing the overall well-being of our students? When discussions were focused on facts, not feelings, when decisions were made based on expertise, not ideology, when our teachers and staff were revered, not repressed. Those were the days. But somehow along the way, our school board meetings became a bit of a reality TV show, a spectacle where news cameras await the board's latest controversial policies and personal agendas overshadow the needs of our teachers, students, and communities. It's exhausting, and we deserve better leadership. We need a school board that is committed to advancing the fundamentals of public education, a board that is committed to the district mission that used to be prominently displayed of empowering students to be lifelong learners prepared for the future. Isn't that inspiring? 5 members of this board are collectively driving this spectacle. 2 of their terms are up in April. So we've got a choice to make as a community. This district faces pressing issues that need all of the creative problem solving that we can muster. Our teachers are in distress. overwhelmed and under-resourced. We lack support staff and can't get enough bus drivers to maintain our routes. We're facing a serious funding crisis. The needs of our student population are increasingly varied, and we're ill-equipped to maintain policies and maintain order in classroom environments where our kids can thrive. And yet, month after month, the policies you bring forward don't address real problems. Solutions looking for a problem that are also ballooning our legal budget and chipping away at teacher autonomy. Eliminating our anti-racism resolution, creating new policy on how our bathrooms are used, making it harder for district parents to learn about school board candidates by restricting electioneering on school premises just as we enter election season. I want us to return our board to its rightful place, a place where the only real drama is the occasional debate over the best way to empower our teachers, expand our students' opportunities, and improve our schools. I desperately want to put the board back in school board and get back to the work of truly preparing our children for the future. We can move away from the chaos machine and create more focused, cooperative, and informed policies that provide real value. My name is Amy Kreider, and I believe we should be aiming higher. For our kids, for our teachers, for our community. I invite all of the voters of this district to aim higher with me. The election is April 8th. Thank you.
Next, we welcome Amy G.
That's a tough act to follow, but I like her. All right, I'm just going to start off with a quote from Chapel Roan. And for all the queer kids in the Midwest watching right now as I see you, I understand you because I am one of you. And don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't be exactly who you want to be. Thank you. And then I brought this DSM-3 because I've been talking through email with Janet, that's your name? Through the DSM-3, we've been kind of going back and forth. And that might have been the curriculum she was kind of taking when she was in college, I don't know. But it would make a lot of sense for a lot of these reasons. But I wanted to go ahead and review an article because in the field that I'm from, we use peer-reviewed research to make decisions, and it makes a lot of sense. And the one that I found most interesting, because I'm learning a lot just about the community and the LGBTQIA+. I hope I got that right, but if I need to learn to correct it, I will. There is a significantly higher rate of suicide and depression, and I just want everybody to know that it is not because of who they are. It is because of the environment that they are surrounded in. And there are many studies that are coming out, and I brought one with you if you would like to see it, just by changing the way that you acknowledge a pronoun for a student. And this was 129 transgender students. And this was from, just so you don't think I pulled it off of some article off Facebook, or I don't know, there's like memes that a lot of old people just like, oh, that's real. But no, it is in a cited journal, peer-reviewed, sorry, I'm a little nervous, second time up here. The Journal of Adolescent Health, 2018, October. So I'm sure there's a lot more out there, but I'm going to be doing more research, of course. Okay, so they significantly reduced suicidal ideation by 29%. They also reduced suicidal ideation behavior by 56%. So by you guys not taking action and not stepping up, if anything happens to the students in this Francis Howell School District, the blood is on your hands. And I don't care. I hope you can sleep with that. It's not everybody, but I don't think I need to say the names. And I'm looking forward, next month, I'd like to discuss some things like real board things that can help the district. We're just spinning our wheels on this, and you're not gonna get anywhere. We're headed on the right direction of history, and where do you wanna fall? But anyways, the thing that I'd like to help the district out with is looking at out-of-district placement. I know that costs a lot of money and the transportation that you have to do.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I'll be back.
Next, we welcome Anita Keener.
Good evening. My name is Anita Keener. I am a retired teacher and patron of the Francis Howell School District. I am still active in FHEA as a retired member at large on the executive board. I am always willing to do whatever I can to make this district great again and keep us out of the media with all of the controversy. But you guys do make that difficult. With that being said, I am happy to have received an email from Ms. Embry last night that the attorney firm hired by the district agreed with FHEA when we filed an informal grievance about retirees subpay being pre-taxed to pay their premiums. I am sorry this took hiring a tax attorney to tell you what we had told you using your own policy and literature. If not, the 4 documents that we were saying was accurate, the former CFO would never have allowed us to do something that would put the district in harm's way. In addition, newly written 4,000 policies were never agreed upon by the FHEA president and the chief of HR. After negotiations, we would put the language together. Let me be clear. We would put the language together that had already been negotiated. These policy changes that the board wants and the 4,000s were not negotiated. To add to that, again, I never sat with Ms. Simpkins to agree to newly written policies. Never. If this district wants to move forward, we need to collaborate. And I know we're big on definitions now. So collaboration, the action of working with someone to create something. By the way, many of us will collaborate to change the Board of Education on April 8th. We will replace 2 board members. All of you need to decide which side of history you want to be on. Have a good evening.
Next, we welcome FHEA. Representatives from FHEA.
Thank you. My name is Francine Hill, and I'm the FHEA president. It was very exciting to see the new playgrounds opening in the elementary schools the last couple of weeks. We were thrilled to see how the students were enjoying them. We know that the staff is looking forward to enjoying fall break, which is rapidly approaching. FHEA hopes that it will give staff, along with students and their families, some much needed downtime to enjoy life outside of school obligations. We encourage our staff to take this time to recharge and relax away from the increasing demands of our daily obligations. We want to take a moment to thank our teachers for their continued dedication to our district while trying to navigate new programs, curriculum changes, and new or changed policies, and much more. Our LMS have been working on understanding the new policies. They are continuing to discover new things in the language, what that language means. When a parent buys a book for a teacher at the book fair, the book becomes the property of the school and is logged into the school system. What if the teacher changes schools, which often happens? Does the book have to stay at the old school? Is this something else the LMS will need to keep track of? We have often heard how parents have the right to decide things about their students' education. Shouldn't that same right apply to what they want to happen to a gift that they buy for a teacher? FHEA has always been willing to work with our school district. We would never turn down the chance to have input on things happening in our district. We have been reaching out to the district about meetings for the 4,000 policies since August 11th and did not receive dates to meet until September 26th, at which time we were offered one date only a week away. After requesting more dates, we only received an offer of the next day. We are teaching full-time with family responsibilities, and that time frame is not reasonable. We also have been working on Senate Bill 727 with the district, and our decisions have been based on advice from our attorney. We will follow our lawyer's advice, as we're sure you would. This is not meaning that we aren't willing to discuss how to follow the guidelines of the Senate bill. FHEA is not responsible for the delay in action or the district's unwillingness to accept an attorney and senator's understanding of the Senate bill over DESE. We are always trying to work together. And I just want to reiterate, we want to thank Carol for getting that all straightened out with our subs and the pay. We all know we need them desperately, and that was a wonderful thing to find out. So thank you very much.
Up next, we welcome FISPA.
Good evening, President Bertrand, members of the board, Dr. Rumpus, cabinet, and patrons. My name is Heidi Nixon, and I am the Vice President for the IT Technicians for FISPA. I have been with Francis Howell for 7 years. On Wednesday, October 2nd, the district celebrated National Custodians, Maintenance, and Grounds Appreciation Day. This group of hardworking individuals works tirelessly almost around the clock to keep our schools functioning. Thank you for all that you do. Later this evening, you will be voting on a negotiated IT Memorandum of Understanding that helps resolve many issues our valuable IT technicians have had over the past few years. We would like to thank the admin team of Lisa Simpkins, Mark Delaney, Dr. Brian Rich, Scott Gowan, Julie Walsh, and Director Puskar for working diligently to help us address a number of IT members' issues. Items included in our agreement are experience pay, the creation of professional development for our IT staff, reimbursement for job-related certifications, and secure workspaces in the school buildings for our IT technicians to do their jobs. And as we near fall break, we would like to again thank our maintenance, grounds, custodial, and IT technicians for all of their hard work. All of these groups will end up partaking in large projects throughout the district while students and teachers are out during the week of fall break to help keep our schools running smoothly. We would also like to thank our AAs throughout the district who will be working portions of fall break as well. Many times you are the faces of your schools with both parents and community members. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you and have a good evening.
Board, I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda for October 10th, 2024 as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Next, we have action items for individual. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the Francis Howell Central High School baseball softball bid package as presented. Ponder. Assembly.
Thank you very much. So this is a bit of a change up for us in terms of providing this program update just before you hear from our architects. It's clickers and microphones we've established. Okay. All right. That will work. Thank you very much. Okay. So Ms. Hepler is loading that up for us. And so the purpose of this presentation is to help us all recenter on that which has transpired over the last several months, dating back especially to March 14. That shows you the discussion objectives, but I will move forward and cover this timeline. So as noted within the timeline, we know that we had a bond issue that was approved by patrons June of 2020, and following that, basically also highlighting that the 2018 project estimates were utilized to inform that budget demand for the bond project, and that was without design and programming work. And that would be best practice whenever a bond issue is being considered, that you would have some preliminary work that would be done to provide better estimates. Also then, December 10th, 2020, the construction manager was approved for the Francis Howell North High School. December 16, 21, Francis Howell North, the amended contract came through. As we know, we've had discussions. It was $163,795,276, and the budget at that time was $86,350,000 without architect and soft cost. So, further reminding you that it's been an interesting journey for everyone involved in dealing with this work here. And that includes that Dr. Rumpus was named the interim superintendent July 1st, 2022, and a new chief finance officer came on board following the chief finance officer who had been in position for a few decades. Item 6, August 10th, 2022, the Citizens Roundtable discussion occurred where criteria was identified for prioritizing the use of the remainder of the funds. There was a survey of additional stakeholders, people who couldn't be in attendance, that was led August 2022. And then Dr. Rumpus, and during a board meeting, March 16, 2023, presented to the Board of Education the Proposition S key findings in the Go Forward plan. Right after that, a few months later, rather, July 1, 2023, our new Director of Facilities and Operations was hired for the district, and that's Mr. Salim Stetzer. And then August 1st, 2023, I joined the team as the Chief Finance Officer. So again, identifying a great deal of transitions that have taken place and potentially or actually did contribute to the delay in getting things moved forward. October 2023 through March 2024, a review of all data was conducted, and that included meeting with internal staff and meeting with consultants to help us better understand some of the updated pricing of what the needs might be. And it was during the March 14, 2024 board work session that we covered all of those items with you and made recommendation for the move forward. This slide provides you with the items that were included as projects to move forward. And as you will note, there are basically three groupings. The first on the left is the individual projects that were recommended, and that includes the transportation fuel island and the hub, the wrestling facility at Francis Howell High, the auditorium renovation at Francis Howell High, auditorium renovation at Francis Howell Central, Francis Howell Central baseball, softball, Francis Howell High tennis courts, playgrounds for 10 of our elementary sites, safety and security, and the demolition of Building C. Then we had listed in the middle there is the Phase 1 HVAC projects, Bryan Middle, John Weldon Elementary, Harvest Ridge Elementary, Francis Howell Middle, Independence Elementary. And then the box down below in particular, we'll discuss it on another slide, but that would be the Phase 2 HVAC projects, and that would be pending funds availability. And so what that did for us was enable us to make recommendation. Perhaps projects might exceed the original budget allocation that was considered early on when the bond issue was approved, or as updated for the March 14th meeting, but then we would be able to be agile and take care of whatever the needs might be. So it provides you as a Board of Education, when making decisions, that flexibility. This is that stop sign slide that was presented during the meeting when Dr. Rumpus presented it, and then we repeated that for you during the March 14th meeting. And we've been diligent about honoring each of those moments to make sure that you remain continually informed through the process. We have explained to you that there are some projects, though, that due to the nature of the project, that it's best to go potentially a cooperative purchase route and seek bids in a different way to where you don't have all those design development, schematic development processes. So during the March 14th meeting, a few things that were highlighted included that the list of projects for the original bond issue, there were multiple iterations, and so we did the best to identify what was appropriate for moving forward. We classified projects into components including items that were completed, they were in process, we were recommending them for future bond utilization or capital funds utilization. We no longer needed or recommended them due to some specific scenarios within those projects, or projects that simply require further evaluation. And also, again, that reminder that original estimates were from the 2018 facilities master plan work with adjustments to just certain projects based on known work that had been conducted throughout the state. So not every one of those dollar amounts was increased for the March 14 recommendation, just certain ones. So I mentioned before that that 2018 pricing did not include schematic design, and I want to just further comment about that. Sometimes boards of education will authorize a district to spend funds for architectural services to really flesh out what that design work might look like in advance of a bond issue. So inflation also has diminished the purchasing power. And so I have a slide for you now that talks about that inflation piece. And you know, it's challenging even when you do a look back. There are a variety of sources and data can be very different. And so this shows you two sources. One is Dodge Construction Network, and those inflationary values represent for the period 2018 through 2024, and they also represent the Midwest region. So Dodge Construction Network is a well-known entity that provides this type of service. The other one is I reached out to one of our local contractors and asked about the St. Louis region, you know, how might those look? And I'm not offering that there's that large gap between them. It's, you know, who knows all the data that's included within those, but I decided, okay, well, let's take the approach of going with the lower one. So as you can see, 2020 to 2024, Dodge Network, Construction Network for Midwest region showed a 51% increase in inflation from 2020 to 2024. That's just 4 short years. It is very similar to that which we've experienced in inflationary costs in every aspect of our lives, I would offer as well. The other one totaling 29.84 for that period of time. And then the slide off to the right there shows that if we took that $243 million bond issue and then considered the inflation that would have been applied to it during that period of time, we lost purchasing power by $72,731,121. So that pulled that $243 million down to $171 million worth of buying power, if you will. This next slide shows you future inflation, and I know during the most recent presentation by our Hollis Miller architects, there was reference to inflation, and it is a real thing that everyone who is doing any building deals with. You can count on inflation to continue to impact your bottom line. And what I've shown you here is if you look at a $50 million amount of remaining funds not committed, and if we assume that annual inflation, that then is a $3 million drop in purchasing power. Of course, quarterly then at 1.5% per quarter is $750,000, taking it down to $49,250 for the upcoming quarter. This slide shows you the status of the projects that were recommended March 14th, and we celebrate that we did complete the Francis Howell High tennis courts. Also, the construction in process has taken place for the playgrounds. We're really close. I actually heard another elementary principal comment that their playground had been finished and people were thrilled, or maybe it was a staff member, someone recently, it was yesterday, said that. On the design bid and process column, as you well know, you have been engaging in that process as information has been brought to you during each meeting. And I did include Phase 1 HVAC because Mr. Stutzer has been working on gathering pricing on that. You haven't received it yet, but it's in process. On the far left is the approved prior to March 14, so I wanted to acknowledge that we had projects underway for utilizing the bond funds, and I've identified that those completed include the security vestibules for those needed sites, and then also Francis Howell North High School. Again, I'm highlighting for you that Phase 2 HVAC on hold pending the funds, those 5 schools that were listed there. And then to be determined is the safety and security allocation. So there's a $2 million hold within the Prop S remaining funds of $2 million for safety and security. I do want to highlight, I know you know this, and so I'm acknowledging it publicly that we do continue to provide administration with the updated cost estimates, the project estimates, as new information is provided to us.
We have not been posting that information publicly because we want to protect the bid process, the integrity of the bids. We want to make sure that, if a bid might be coming in lower, we want to make sure we get that price, not that it reaches that potential budget estimate. That's been noted. And it's not required that we post those by Missouri statute. This now takes us through the journey of our projects. As I shared before, the Francis Howell High School tennis courts have been completed. The budget estimate for March 14 was $1.7 million. I've noted some things. I won't cover all the details for this one in particular, but we did use that cooperative purchasing approach for this one. And the final price came in at $1,220,931 that you approved. And the cost is being further reduced by another $20,000, basically due to limited use of contingency allocations. That's a celebration. For the playgrounds, we had a budget estimate of $5.9 million. You know that we had a third party perform a comprehensive review and identified all of our deficiencies. We wanted to make sure that we're providing spaces for students that are age appropriate, accessibility appropriate, make sure that all the equipment was functioning well, not obsolete, and certainly repairable. And so the pricing noted there, the total was $5,846,315.46. This is that safety and security allocation, and the new comment I want to make here. We know that we're in the middle of a safe schools analysis, and I shared, well, I'll be sharing later actually, that those gentlemen will be on site next week to conduct that review of our physical structures. And also, we have ideas of additional cameras and recording devices and that kind of thing that we might need, and that may be the information we receive from this process. But we also are suggesting that the addition that is warranted based on the requirement that we have a storm shelter for the wrestling facility, that perhaps most of that could be carved out of this allocation. So that would be something that you would consider. And I want to highlight also, I realized as we were going through this review that we brought forward a recommendation during the September meeting for, I'll say it wrong, but it's iPhones, it may be pronounced differently, but those are, and also for cameras, those are items that are in the buildings. Again, it's all about safety and security, but that they technically qualify, even though it was $197,322. They technically qualify as operating costs. The capital threshold was increased by both the federal and state governments July 1 from $1,000 per unit to $5,000 per unit. And so that would be something that we would suggest moving out of the bond fund utilization. The Building C demolition is another item that's listed, and it was built in 1975. I've noted some other information for you there. And we had a conversation during the March 14th meeting about the viability of improving it, maybe using it for other purposes, or even considering selling it. And I'll highlight for you that the annual utilities of that vacant space are approximately $135,000. Structural improvements are estimated at $1.75 million to fix some of the issues of that building. Replacing the HVAC system would be estimated at $2.2 million. And then also relative to potentially selling that property, we rely upon that parking around that building for Francis Howell High utilization. So it will be during the November meeting that Mr. Stutzer will make recommendation, provide a presentation about how to move forward with that, and with a recommendation for vote at the December meeting. I would also identify that any of that improvement would not address cosmetic needs that would need to occur in that building. Okay, so on our HVAC, so this represents that phase 1 listing. And to help you understand the bright line between the two phases, these are units that are 25 plus years old, and many of the systems have parts that are obsolete. They are not efficient for providing energy utilization. Again, Mr. Stutzer will provide a recommendation regarding the move forward on this in November and finalize that in December. So we know that Ameren has indicated there could be potential rebates. I'm not sure of the split between the two phases, but $952,000 could be a potential rebate. And by replacing these units, we could potentially save $280,000 a year in utility costs. So again, those would be recommended as a project to move forward right away. And the reason for recommending it at that point in time would be so that the work could begin as soon as students and staff vacate buildings at the close of the school year. This next list is the one that we suggest be on hold. These are the units that are nearing end of life, 20 or more years. So for this piece, this again would be if there are funds available after you've made all your other decisions, we would utilize this $15.353 million toward replacing these units. In the event that one of them was pulled off because we needed those funds to finish out a previously identified higher priority project, we can always come back and utilize regular capital funds to replace any of these remaining projects that have been identified as needing to be done. Okay, so now this is projects in the design bid status process still, and this is the fuel island. You'll know the budget estimate originally was $650,000. We will be issuing the bids tomorrow, and construction contract recommendation will be provided during the November 21, 2024 meeting. And I also will tell you that we heard your comments during the last board meeting, and the team has been working diligently to identify whatever adjustments might be available for this and also the transportation maintenance facility. So that is to provide a maintenance building for our buses. As you know, our architect team and Mr. Stutzer have presented on that a few times. We currently have 2 short stalls where people are not able to close doors because the bus sticks out too far when they're working on it, and maintaining a fleet of 163 buses. That presents a challenge. We also know that as the bus fleet continues to age, then there will be an increased demand relative to the work performed by our mechanics there. So this one is in conjunction now, as you know, with the fuel island piece. So they both will be bid tomorrow and then be brought back for the November 21 meeting. This is relative to the high school, or excuse me, Francis Howell High Wrestling and Multipurpose Facility. It had an original budget estimate of $2.5 million. And as has been shared with you, the International Code Council requires this facility be storm shelter rated, and that brings additional costs for the building. That's what I referenced on the safety and security slide, that perhaps some of those dollars could be repositioned as a budget allocation here. The final design recommendation and approval to let bids will occur during the November 21, 2024 meeting. This slide is for both of the auditoriums, and this is particularly where there was discussion and you made suggestions on ways that we might cut back on some of the scope so that we could work towards staying within budget, and the team has been working diligently on that. So again, this is for both Francis Howell High School and Francis Howell Central High School. The original plan from the bond project, when it was approved, was that these would be new auditoriums, and these are renovations that are being recommended instead. So replacing a number of broken seats and providing appropriate spaces for other activities within the school environment for students. That one is also queued up for final design recommendation and approval to let bids during the October 21, 2024 meeting. And then this last one, which is the one you'll be hearing about this evening, is our Francis Howell Central High School baseball softball field. The original budget estimate was $1.8 million. We are spending money each year, as you well know, to convert it back and forth to provide for softball and baseball and then back again. $35,000 annually. That cost will continue to grow if it's not addressed. We did have an office for a civil rights claim relative to this space, and it's not about having turf, it's not a requirement of turf, but the turf is what affords us the ability to just have that one field for using for both types of sports. So including lighting for the field allows versatility of space utilization when weather issues would otherwise impact scheduling. And again, just in a few minutes here, our team will come up and present this for you. It was presented for recommendation and bid approval, recommendation on the design and bid approval August 15th. Bids were issued September 4 and opened September 25. So they'll have more information to share in just a moment. This is a reminder that each month we provide you with our bond financial information. It's posted under the Finance and Operations agenda section of the board meeting, and it lists out all of our expenditures and revenues that have occurred since the issue originated. And this slide reminds you that the funds that we have available, basically. It reminds you too of the arbitrage. So arbitrage again is where we must return interest earnings back to the Internal Revenue Service when we've earned more money than we've had to pay in interest on the debt. And that's an interesting thing. We're working on how does that work, because usually you have to close out the bonds before your arbitrage calculation is officially made. In order to close out the bonds, we would need to go ahead and spend that $2.789 million we've continued to deduct. So that could be another one of those situations where we pull back in another HVAC unit or identify some other need in the district to go ahead and spend it. We would then, though, have to pay the arbitrage refund back to IRS out of other funds. So we'll get informed by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education if that's to be a general fund payment or if it is also to be a capital fund in some fashion. We have a contingency return. That's noted as $1,468,576.90, and that's as of October 2nd. And the escalation allowance also is $806,829 that will come back to the district. So all of those numbers tie out and result in what we have available here. And so as you can see, and I know it's tiny print, we've got all those March 14th projects listed. Again, this appears each month under the financial report. As soon as we have a new bid amount approval by the Board of Education authorizing us to move forward and award that project, we change the data within the financial report and update it to the final numbers, and also that then provides us our updated total. So as of the close of September 30, we have $3,079,111 available for projects beyond all of those that are listed there, including Phase 2 HVAC. So this just teases that out a little bit more. It's the same information, just on a larger view for you. So the remaining balance of projects not started is $51,510,000, and more to come in just a few minutes. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those before the team starts their presentation.
Questions, board? Spencer.
Okay, that's my signal to get out of the way. All right.
All right. Good evening, board. Before you for consideration this evening is a presentation and recommendation for improvements to the baseball softball complex at Francis House Central. I will co-present with our Hollis & Miller partners. Justin Durham will co-present with me this evening. I will cover the journey that's gotten us to the point we're at this evening, and he will cover the bid tabulation portion, and then I'll close with the recommendation. Our hope this evening is you'll continue to see the demonstrated fiscal responsibility by strategically leveraging of scopes to help with the overall bond program budget. So we'll jump right into the presentation. Again, from a project timeline standpoint, we just want to create a baseline to remind you of where we started and where we're at today. So we received approval to explore from the board during the March 14th board work session. Schematic designs were approved by the board on July 18th of 24. And the board approved us to go out to bid from a design development. They approved the design development approval and then the letting of the bid package at the August board meeting. Publicly advertised the project September 4th. We held a on-site pre-bid meeting on the 10th and publicly opened the bids on September 25th. And then for the cooperative purchasing piece, we did receive those electronically on the 27th of September. They weren't publicly read out loud. And then this evening, obviously, we're here to recommend a construction contract based off of the packages that were released. And our goal is to have the project completed by February of 2025, right before baseball program would start. So our current realities, as Ms. Embry has already shared, we spend about $35,000. That's not including any of the labor of our internal teams to convert that field back and forth due to the Office of Civil Rights claim. So this project, obviously, on bullet point number 2 would allow us to be more compliant with that by leveraging our resources more appropriately. And then including the inclusion of the lights for the field will allow versatility and space utilization when weather issues would otherwise impact scheduling. Then the spectator area where the bleachers are, as we were doing the assessments, they're non-compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Project delivery method. So we sat down and I challenged the team to, we have to think outside the box. Obviously, inflation numbers have been shared with the board this evening as well as with the community. And so we had some opportunities to strategically leverage how we would deliver this project to help reduce the overall expenditures to deliver this project. So what we ended up doing was carving out the hard bidding, the civil work, fencing, and then the alternates that the board had approved. And then we utilized cooperative purchasing for the lights and the turf on the field. So by doing that, and this is real data from consultants that we've talked to in terms of if we would have kept the lights and the turf within the hard bid package, we reduced approximately reduced our overall expenditure by about $239,000. So just again, this is the design that the board approved at the August board meeting. These are the estimates that were provided to the board. The $1.8 million there was at the March 24 work session. And then as Ms. Embry has shared, the other 2 estimates were provided to the board in closed session as allowable by state statute. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Justin Durham. He will present the bid tabulations and narrate a few unique things within each one.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Stutzer. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Again, just like Ms. Embry's presentation, got some nice small numbers there for you guys to read. So bid tabulation, we were really impressed with the turnout that we had. We had 7 bids on bid day. So we had 7 different bidders give us bid packages that we were able to open and read aloud. So that was good for us. Anytime we get more than 2, 3, 4 bidders, that really helps drive down that bid day cost. Another thing that we were really impressed with on bid day is a lot of the numbers were very close to one another. So if you guys can read those very small numbers up there, you'll see that we had several numbers that were within a very small range. That means that they had good drawings to bid from, they had good subcontractor input, and we got good bid day numbers. On bid day, we did go with Vernon Jones as our recommended contractor. We're doing work with them right now, so we are familiar with them as a company with Hollis & Miller, and they are doing a great job with us. So their base bid amount was $1,260,000. And then we looked at alternate number 3, which would be the bleacher seating. So that's what Mr. Stutzer was talking about, to bring that area up to ADA compliance. The bleachers are $55,000 of that amount. And then after we de-scoped with Vernon Jones, we did our reference calls and checks on them like we always do. They came to us and gave us a few options that were value engineering type items that wouldn't have any impact on the project. So the first one here is just a different type of drainage pipe that they like to use underneath their gravel base. So we had designed round pipes that you get to trench in, common practice. They like to use a flatter pipe. It works well with their system's design. Not having to dig those trenches equaled a savings of about $35,000 to the project. So we were happy to accept that one. The second one was in lieu of doing the 24-foot tall fence out in right field, because it's a little bit shorter of a distance, we wanted to protect those neighbors, those shed structures in their backyards. So in lieu of doing that out of a chain link fence, they proposed to do that out of a net system. Again, great opportunity, doesn't really change the design of the field at all, and it also saved us $20,000. So that's another thing that we're looking at. And the last one was in the bullpens for the visitors and the home teams, we had the removable pitching mounts, right? The small portable ones. They came to us and said, you know what, we can pour those out of concrete, we can turf over them, they'll last forever, and then it'll also save you $10,000. So we went back and we did check. Those portable mounts weren't necessarily going to be moved or used for any other purpose. Softball can still pitch in that bullpen as well, so they're not going to interfere with either baseball or softball. So we decided that we would look at that alternate as well, and that's a $10,000 savings to the project. So all those there was really good news. And then the next thing we did, as Mr. Stutzer kind of laid out for us, is we decided to, and we've done this on a couple other fields, and we've discussed this. So what we decided to do was think creatively, and we took the turf out of the bid day number, and we did that for a few reasons, and I'll kind of go into that a little bit. So what we did is we did the base rock, the grading, the fencing, all of that, we put that out to hard bid for contractors to bid. That way, the competition could drive down the prices for that. What we did then is we reached out to several different turf manufacturers that we've used in the past, and you can see their names here, and we got co-op pricing for that. What that allowed us to do is go directly to those companies, get their best price for the turf and that turf installation, but what we did is we avoided the markup of the general contractor on bid day. So you guys all know how the bid process works is the general contractor will reach out to several different subcontractors and they'll put all those numbers in a big pot, and that's the big number that they bring to you on bid day. What they do though is each one of those subcontractors has to fall under their bonds and insurance and their liability, so they put a markup on every subcontractor number that they get. So what we were able to do was avoid that markup by going directly to these turf manufacturers through the co-op and then get direct pricing. So on bid day, or when we got the contractors co-op pricing back, we actually had 5 bidders. One did pull their product because they were not low bid on bid day, and they will only supply their turf if they do the contracting work also. So that was a bit of a disappointment for us, but it was okay because our low bid was still survived at Sprint Turf there. We've used them in the past, they're a good company, and that would be our recommendation, is to go with Sprint Turf for the baseball field. The next co-op pricing that we did, similar in reasoning, was for the lighting piece, and we had 2 bids for lights. It was Musco and Techline, and after reviewing those, we decided to make the recommendation to go with Musco, mainly for the reason that they offer a 25-year warranty on their product. So we decided to accept that bid and present that to you this evening. And really, you know, as Mr. Stutzer and Ms. Embry kind of laid out for us, the lights do a couple different things for us. So for game days, it allows students to not maybe have to leave early because we can start the games a little bit later so you don't miss that instructional time. For practices, we can do several different things in terms of, you have freshman teams, JV teams, varsity teams that are all vying for that practice field time, right? And so by having those lights, it allows those teams to get a little bit more time on that turf varsity type field, allows them to have that equal opportunity for practicing every day. Weather, so when weather does come about, it allows us to either push games back potentially, if it's a lightning delay or something like that, we can push that back. If it rains on Tuesday, now we can have games on Wednesday and maybe double up. And avoid those weather delays or having to go to a different facility to play those games because we run out of daylight. And then a big thing too is transportation, and we talked about that. We actually talked about that with the transportation department a little bit in terms of, you know, the stress that it puts on them when games change, when schedules change, finding a new driver, taking the teams, bringing them back, those kind of things. And then another brief thing that we talked about with Mr. Stutzer and myself is just the use outside of school district time. Right, so it gives the ability for outside people to come in, rent the facility, and maybe use it a little more effectively. You know, in the 8 or 10 year life of that turf, you get to use the maximum amount, and it really kind of helps max out the use of that field. So, with that, I think that's kind of the bid update, and I'll let Mr. Stutzer make the recommendation.
Board, before that happens, I want to clarify one thing that Mr. Stutzer said that was not accurate. He stated that those estimates were provided in closed session. This has not been discussed. There was no special meeting to discuss this during closed. It was just that the information was communicated to the board.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so that gets us to the recommendation. And so this evening, the administration would recommend approving Byrne & Jones construction for the base package and bleachers, and Sprint Turf for the turf, and Musco lighting for the lighting in connection with the Francis House Central baseball softball complex improvements for a total hard cost of $2,062,760. The project will ensure compliance with the Office of Civil Rights Claim, compliance with the Americans with Disability Act, and eliminate annual conversion expenditures while creating a versatile space that can be utilized when weather impacts program scheduling. And so when you factor in the hard cost as well as the soft costs, design fees, engineering fees, the total program budget for this project is $2,374,000. And we do have one more thing to add from a bid day standpoint.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that in our base bid number, in the $1,260,000 that you saw from Byrne & Jones, and I meant to tell you guys this in my presentation, I apologize. Sometimes when we do turf fields, we have an unforeseen that we need soil stabilization. So within that bid, there's $110,000 to make sure that that was inside the base bid amount. We do feel that, we may not need all of that or any of that. So if that base stabilization is not used, that money does come back to the district, but it was there to protect us. And why we did that was we wanted to call our shot. We didn't want the contractors to come back and say, oh, you need to stabilize the field underneath your new turf. It's going to be $200,000. So what we did is we reached out to several of the turf manufacturers that we reached out to for cooperative pricing, and we got that number ahead of bid day, and we cemented that within the budget of the project. So that $110,000 is inside the base bid number, and you are covered if we do need to use it. And if we don't use it, that money will come back to you. So thank you, Mr. Susser. I forgot to mention that.
I got a question. When you mentioned, this is pennies compared to what we're talking about here, but when you mentioned that you were going to replace the chain link fence with a net and save $20,000, do you have a life expectancy on that net?
Yeah, so the netting systems that we will supply, the poles will last forever. The nets are going to last that 10 to 12 years. So what you would be paying for is the replacement of the netting system every 10 to 12 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that 20 grand.
Yeah, so the 20 grand included the footings, concrete footings, the tall posts, and then the nets.
So
the netting is a small portion of that $20,000 that we would pay, yeah.
Got it, thanks.
Does the elimination of the wall out there, does that adjust the distance to the plate?
No, so it's the outside fence, the exterior fence, the right field fence is still the same distance. What we did is, because it's a little bit shorter distance, it was 305 feet or something like that, we had a 20-foot tall fence, 24-foot tall fence. So the distance to right field is exactly the same, it does not change. We just changed the height of the chain link to 8 foot, and then the net then covers the other 16 feet to go to 24 feet.
So a home run is over the chain link? Not.
So you guys as a district can dictate that. So you can put the yellow cap on the outfield fence, or you can say it's got to go over the net. So you can be Yankee Stadium or Garden Stadium. It's kind of up to you guys. So yeah.
And one of the things that I didn't even think to ask about is there a batter's eye?
We did not do a batter's eye. No.
Additional questions, board?
I'm also going to, sorry, President Bertrand, I'm also going to ask Mr. Durham just to cover a couple of small technical things on the light piece, about light shed.
Oh, yeah. So another question, you guys did ask a few presentations ago about the lighting system in Musco. Yeah. And so we wanted to make sure that you guys knew that we have talked to the city of Cottleville. We have outlined that we may be bringing lights to them. We wanted to talk to them first before we brought any recommendation to you to make sure that all bases were covered, pun intended. And so in their conversation, they want to see light shed amounts so that we're protecting the neighbors, right? We don't want that light spillage to go over into their yards. The great thing about the LED lighting systems that we have today, especially through like Musco and Tech Line's the one that we went with, is they will provide all of that documentation to the city as a deferred submittal if we choose to move forward with that. And what that means is we will not be spilling light onto the neighbors' properties. It will stay all on Francis House Central site, and it will protect you guys as, you know, if people complain about the lights being on at night or whatever, you can always see the lights from a distance, but the light will not be going onto their property, and that's what we have to make sure that we cover for city permit reasons. So.
Yeah, those lights actually do a really good job of projecting where you want them to be projected.
Exactly, yes.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Other questions, board? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board would like a motion to approve the financial report as presented. Director Ponder, Ms. Embry.
Good evening again. No, I got it. It's good. Thank you. Okay, so.
Miss Embry, can I?
Yes.
We're going to take a
30-second.
30-second break.
Jackson.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Maybe like 3 minutes.
Although, this was really going to be interesting. I'm just offering that to
If you want to stay for school finance.
Good cheers for Jackson. We taking
3 minutes.
3-minute break.
3-minute break. Shake it out.
You can do 2 for the rest of the 3 minutes.
There was an end.
A motion to table the approval of the financial report.
Second.
Discussion board?
Just made this motion so we can move another item up, and then we'll pick this back up off the table after that's done, so.
Who was the second on that?
Director Blair. We got a first table this from Director Cook and a second from Director Blair. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Board, I'd just like to see if there's unanimous consent to move up the MOU so those that need to sign it and be involved can sign it and potentially get some sleep tonight.
Yes.
Everybody get any objection? No. All right, we'll do that. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the 2024-2027 FISPA Memorandum of Understanding for District IT Technicians as presented. Simpkins.
Thank you, President Bertrand. Just want to say thank you to the team, our computer techs and Scott Gowen across from me here. We had a great conversation. We were able to address all the issues and concerns from both parties, and it was just a great collaborative conversation in the room. So we just appreciate everybody being there and working together. Happy to share the memo with you. We are happy to present it to you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for it? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. We'll now take a quick break to sign the memo.
Thank you.
No, it's over.
Let's go.
Thank you. Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will continue with our motion to approve the financial report as presented.
Well, here, I'll make a motion to pick the finance and operations report off the table.
Second. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Ms. Embry.
Okay, this will actually be quite short because, once again, we've not made any changes. I'd hope that we can bring some of the budget amendments to you during this meeting, but we're holding everything for November so that it can be a comprehensive recommendation. So this basically says none. And then I did want, though, to give you an update on our Safe Schools analysis. I kind of alluded to it before. We do have these slides that show you no changes to the financial information, no changes to the trajectory for our operating fund balance at this time. We know that it will change because that's what budgets do every year. So the Safe Schools analysis, remember I was so excited that this is all working out so well, and I was also thrilled when I found out that they could actually be boots on the ground here next week. So we have the consultants coming in on the 15th and 16th. We apprised our building leaders this morning that those, whatever sites they choose to explore and check out the physical structures will occur on those 2 days. And then we also have a team of leaders who are not only gathering all the documentation and the procedures and everything that we currently do, but they'll also participate in some of those dialogues and the building reviews as well. So just that's the update. And again, additional meetings will occur after that, and then we anticipate their report 60 to 90 days after all the data collection is completed. And then beyond that, there are just a couple of slides that give you that awareness of all the things that are taking place in finance and operations, some of the work taking place, and that concludes that presentation.
Wow. Questions, board? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Next, we have a motion to approve the bond underwriter as presented.
So moved.
Good. Ms. Embry.
Yes. So I'm happy to share with you that we did issue a bond underwriter RFQ. There aren't a lot of companies that would participate in bidding on that. We issued the bid on September 9th, and we allowed for questions on the bid, or it was actually a request for qualifications, I should clarify, by September 19th, and responses were due September 26th. We did receive 3 bids from qualifying companies, and we determined that all 3 of those firms should be interviewed by the team. And so the interviews were conducted on October 1st, and we evaluated each of the firms relative to prior experience in similar districts in the state of Missouri, also those with experience in larger districts, 10,000 students or greater. We looked at the current districts that they serve and also any prior experience of the key staff that would be serving in Francis Howell. Significant focus was placed on the project approach and how they would work on strategically identifying opportunities, unique opportunities, and strategies to deal with our debt, and also that communication process that would be deployed by them. I've provided for you, following the interview process, I did reach back out then once the team selected them unanimously, and the recommendation is that the Francis Howell School District would utilize Piper Sandler as the bond underwriter moving forward. I reached out and they provided their pricing structure. I've included a note in here that based on these rates provided by the Piper Sandler team, they would have produced an overall approximate $140,000 less in bond fees for the last issue. So that just gives you some perspective of what you could expect moving forward. That's the recommendation. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Questions, Board?
What are their particulars? I mean, what kind of experience do they have? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so they have varied. There were 3 members that were present for the interview. One banker has 17 years of experience in the business. Another, I believe, was at 8 years, and the third one, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay.
But significant and significant service. They do, Piper Sandler, it is a national corporation. They have an office in Leawood, Kansas, but they also have, an office in Clayton nearby, and they serve districts throughout this area. They've worked on financing teams. They've worked with, as noted in the information on board docs, with 10 of the 18 larger school districts in the state, and nearly 100 school districts throughout the state of Missouri, including those St. Louis area districts. So I have had opportunity to engage with 2 of the members of the team previously, and they have provided outstanding customer service.
Fantastic, because I know we've talked about the customer service aspect of it in the past, so I'm really glad. I'm also very happy with the fact that you saved us $140,000.
Well, we could have. Maybe we'd have future savings.
Okay, I'm saying.
Yes.
I know you'll find that $140,000 somewhere.
Yes, let's do that.
Additional questions, Board? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Would I like a motion to approve the purchases as presented?
Second.
Good. Questions, Board? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Would I like a motion to approve the revised 2024-2025 and 25-26 board staff salary schedules as presented? Second. Ponder. Ms. Simpkins.
Just a quick change to remove the computer checks off of that schedule, as they'll be moved on to a FHSD negotiated schedule.
Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Just for the community, there's a number of policy and regulations for our first reading, so please take a look. The districts and the board are happy to have any feedback to those. And we have a motion to approve policy 4520 GE as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Herman. Discussion, Board? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it.
Director Bertrand, before we leave the policy portion of our meeting, I'd like to make a motion that we add policy 2116, which is our safety and security, privacy and bathroom policy, to the meeting in November for a second read and vote.
We have a motion to add policy 221.
2116.
So, point of order, is this a motion?
Safety
This
and
is-
privacy and.
Is it a motion regarding what's on the agenda currently?
No, my motion is to put policy 2116 on the November agenda.
I don't think that's a valid motion because we're discussing
Oh, it's-
policy 45,
Well, okay,
20G.
all right. I'll wait till we're finished discussing the policy for comment. I thought they were finished.
We are, because we're out of policy section.
But, okay, so this is a privileged motion, which I can make according to Robert's rules. Mhm.
That's a point of order question. Is this something that needs to happen within the board meeting, or is this something where she can add it outside the board meeting? I mean, I'm just curious, if she wants to add it, does it have to happen in the board meeting? Or I just don't know, I've never. Does it have to be decided in this environment?
If the motion gets seconded, it does.
That's a good distinction, thank you.
I'm not looking for a vote on the policy. I'm looking on a vote, put it on the next agenda.
So looking through this, there are 5 privileged motions. Call for the orders of the day, call the question of, raise a question of privilege, recess, adjourn, and fix the time to which to adjourn. Those are the 5 privileged motions.
So you're denying my motion?
It would be out of order. Up next is superintendent comments. Dr. Rumpus.
Thank you, President Bertrand. I'm excited to share that on Monday of this week, a team from the Wasatch County School District in Utah actually traveled here to visit Francis Howell High School. Dr. Wedlock, John Schultz, and guidance counselor Kristen Adams hosted a group of leaders from their district, including their superintendent, other district and building leaders, who came to see and hear how Francis Howell High is embedding professional learning communities into their day-to-day work within the building. Throughout our entire district, we're utilizing PLCs, which is our teachers coming together to collaboratively analyze student data, talk about effective teaching strategies, and develop plans together to meet the needs of students. Francis Howell High is recognized as a model school nationwide, and so that's why this district chose to come and visit and got to spend time with them and left with strategies that Howell High has put in place that we're doing district-wide to take back to their team. So it was an honor for Howell High and for the district to have them visit. I also want to recognize the Spartan Regiment, which is the band at Howell Central. This past weekend, they competed at the Memphis Regional Bands of America competition, and for the first time in school history, made the finals in the competition. So out of 24 elite bands from 6 different states, they earned a spot in the finals and ultimately earned 10th place, which is a great honor, their first time making it. So congratulations to the group and to Nathan Griffin, Drew Steck, and Shannon Krebs, who are the leaders of that band. We will formally be recognizing at the November meeting, but want to announce because it's out there, our 2 Emerson Award winners for this year. Mr. Leif Johnson, who is a teacher at Sager Middle School, was surprised last Wednesday with the award. Emerson, as you know, headquartered here in St. Louis, recognizes area educators each year who exemplify excellence in their field. It's the 34th year of the program, and we're thrilled to get to recognize him. And then also Katie Schottmuller, who has worked at the district for more than a decade and is a science teacher at Francis Howell High School, was our second award winner for this year. So they will both be recognized here at the board meeting and also receive recognition from Emerson. Last week, we did our first full day meeting with our cohort this year of our Citizens in Schools, our second group. They kicked off with a journey throughout the entire district. We get at least a drive-by of almost every building in the district. We fell a little bit off time this year, but tried to do our best to get by all buildings. Throughout the entire drive, they're learning about the history of the district and of our schools. And I think each time you hear the information, you pick up some new stories about really what has made Howell special and what makes each of our schools special. And it was recognized earlier, but I also want to acknowledge that we are excited that Howell was named on the most recent niche list as the one of the top 10 districts in the state of Missouri. We recognize there are a lot of different factors that go into that, but we also know that our community values rankings of any sort, and we always want to make sure that we're near the top, both in the county and in the state. And at the end of the day, that happens when we're doing what's best for students and meeting our student needs, and it exemplifies the incredible work of our teachers and our staff throughout the district. And so it's an honor for the entire district. And last, I want to take a moment and thank our transportation team. They had a surprise inspection from the state this week. So they came in and inspected 25 buses without announcement, and we only had one minor failure due to a turn signal light that needed to be replaced. So they fixed that quickly and leads to a 100% passing rate. And so it just showcases the team's commitment to excellence and having buses that are keeping our students safe each and every day. So I want to thank them and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rubis. Next, we have board comments.
You know I always have something to say.
Are you going to go?
I just want to say that last evening I attended my first Parents as Teachers meeting since I am on that committee now. I am impressed by the professionalism of the staff and the important work that they do for the Francis Howell School District. During the meeting, we brainstormed ideas for increasing participation in the Parents as Teachers program, and we got better acquainted. A couple things I learned are that the Parents as Teachers program has been a valuable part of this district for 43 years. And last year they made over 8,000 home visits. Wow. I think that's impressive. I think that was the most home visits of all the Parents as Teachers programs in St. Charles County. So I think that's pretty impressive. I just want to, give them a shout out and tell them how proud I am of them. I think they're awesome. And they want to get more babies in the program. Start right when they get born.
I was going to just say one thing. Today I was at McDonald's because I'm a fancy person, and while I was there, a Francis Howell School bus pulled up, and out of the bus came 3 paras and a number of our students who have unique needs, and I learned that that's part of the CBI program, and that they were on this community excursion where they went to Schnucks to learn how to shop for groceries and they shop for the canned foods that were going to be used at the Francis Howell North canned food drive. And when I was there, it was not surprising, but just also neat to see those three people, the teacher, Julie Smith, and two paras, Max Hessel and Emily Just, represent our district so well. And the love they had towards those students was exemplary. And I'm amazed at how many things are going great in this school district that I've never heard of before and just needs a little flashlight here and there to celebrate. So I just want to celebrate Julie Smith, Max Hessel, Emily Just, CPI program at North, and those at the other high schools as well that exist. I don't know the names of those persons too, but thank you all for caring for those students to make sure each student gets the best education that they need for where they are. Just really, really proud of them. Thanks.
President Bertrand, I'd like to make a motion.
This is commentary, not motion.
So you're denying my motion again? So you're denying my motion again?
There's no denying a motion. It's not the proper time to be making a motion.
I'd like to, it's come to my attention that at least at last month's school board meeting, someone during patron comments called me names for approximately 3 minutes. Let me explain why calling people names is harmful for several reasons, both for the person being insulted and for the overall social environment, which in this case includes children that are usually present, though they've left early tonight. First, name calling causes emotional harm by undermining self-esteem. It can hurt someone's self-esteem, making them feel less valued or respected. This also is true for all board members. Name calling has a mental health impact. Repeated verbal insults can contribute to anxiety, depression, or stress. This can also negatively impact children and teens who are still forming their identity as they sit and listen to the vitriol that some here have espoused. Name calling promotes hostility. It creates conflict. Name calling escalates disagreements and makes it harder to resolve conflicts peacefully. Name calling destroys trust. Insulting someone damages trust and can make it difficult to rebuild relationships, whether at work, school, or home. Most of all, it encourages bullying. It projects a power imbalance. Name calling is often used to assert power over someone, which can lead to reinforced bullying. Name calling normalizes aggression. When name calling is tolerated, it can create an environment where aggressive behavior seems acceptable. Name calling reflects poor emotional control. Name calling shows immaturity. Resorting to name calling instead of addressing the issue calmly reflects poor emotional regulation and a lack of maturity. Name calling affects how you're seen. Others might see you as rude, unkind, or unreliable, which can hurt your reputation. Avoiding name calling promotes respect and better communication. Though I truly hope that the person that stood up and called anybody that has stood up and called either me or any of the other board members a name, I sincerely hope that all people who attend these meetings will consider it a learning experience. I'd also like to go on to mention.
Apologize for calling.
As debates around public safety, privacy, and inclusivity continue to evolve, the FHSD board should be advocates for the passage of a segregated bathroom policy that ensures distinct facilities for different genders. Now more than ever, there is an urgent need to address concerns related to the comfort and security of all individuals using public restrooms. By maintaining separate bathroom spaces, individuals can enjoy a heightened sense of safety and personal privacy, free from the anxiety that can arise in shared spaces. This policy reinforces a long-standing tradition of bathroom segregation, offering solutions for those who feel vulnerable in gender-neutral environments. Increased incidents of harassment and the potential for discomfort in mixed-gender spaces have prompted a reevaluation of restroom policies across the country. Segregated bathroom policies create clear boundaries, ensuring that every individual can utilize these essential public amenities without fear of intrusion. This approach also respects the personal choices of many who prefer gender-specific spaces for cultural, religious, or personal reasons. By formalizing bathroom segregation, we can address growing concerns about safety and establish environments where privacy and dignity are upheld. We, the policymakers of FHSD, seek to balance inclusivity with public safety. The passage of a segregated bathroom policy presents a timely and practical solution. I, for one, believe that such measures serve the best interest of the public by providing a safer and more comfortable environment for all. It's essential that this board act now to create policies that respect individual preferences while addressing the legitimate concerns of those who feel more secure in gender-segregated spaces. Thank you.
Other board comments?
Yeah, okay. Growing up, I had the privilege of having a lot of really good teachers, and I remember them fondly. You know, each one of them made an imprint on my life. And I look now and I see the experiences that my daughters are having in school. One that has just started out in kindergarten, the other making her way through elementary. And in each instance, you know, with Mrs. Stark and Mrs. Carr and Mrs. Prey and now Mrs. Koenig, they've each really had a role to play in the development of my daughters. Fortunately, in Francis Howell, my daughters have had the privilege of both having the same kindergarten teacher in Mrs. Stark. And one of the things that Mrs. Stark said to me when we first met for parent-teacher meetings was, "Oh, I knew that was her, you know, Isla's sister, because they look the same. They look just alike." And I said, "Oh, well, hold on a second. You know, don't let the costume fool you. This one's the spicy one." So we had a good laugh, and it was clear to me that these teachers really do, you know, take our kids home. They really do feel for the kids, and that was it became more evident this week when Kelsey Koenig, she's my daughter's third grade teacher, went completely above and beyond and shocked both my wife and I when she showed up to my daughter's softball game. And it was amazing to see the difference in play that an 8-year-old can do when she's on the softball field, when it's not just mom and dad watching, right? Somebody that she, you know, is with 8 hours a day is now there, and she's trying to impress her, and she's paying attention now, and she got, you know, 3 hits, and it was amazing. So, you know, if there are any teachers in here that want to really exemplify what I think Francis Howell should be, follow Kelsey Koenig and her example. She's an amazing teacher. Follow Mrs. Stark, follow Mrs. Prey. Mrs. Carr is off having a baby, so follow her too. So, but I do want to commend especially Mrs. Koenig for really showing my daughter and everybody in her class and everybody in this district now what a teacher really exemplifies, and what we really strive for our teachers to be here, because it does. It makes a huge difference, and made a huge difference in that one day for my daughter. It was fantastic to see. So I commend Mrs. Koenig for really going above and beyond, and hope that more teachers take an active role like that in the development and the lives of the actual students themselves. So thank you, Mrs. Koenig. I really appreciate it.
So before we kind of move on to our strategic plan work session, I just wanted to highlight a couple things. Number one was the summer school report, which was in the consent agenda. We didn't talk about it, but it's in there. Lots of good stuff going on there. Appreciate everybody that does all the hard work over the summer for all the kids that need a little bit extra, or just voluntarily want to do a little bit extra. I know a couple of those that like to just continue their learning through the summer, so that's always a good thing. So a lot of good stuff there. If you get a chance to look through that report and see all those good things. And then just want to highlight October is National Principals Appreciation Month, so thank you to all the principals and all the hard work you do in supporting our teachers and supporting the buildings and parents and students. So just want to throw that out there. Up next, we have our strategic planning update. Ms. Joel's to present. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Perfect. We'll have a 5-minute break and then start that up.
Probably 30 minutes.
Push Ron again. You did? Yeah, I said we were having food at this meeting. Good for you. It's the only reason I agreed to stay. Oh, yeah. Jane hasn't had her fun. You want me to get you some? No. I can walk. I might have to get up. Yes. We are? Oh, is that what we were supposed to eat? No, didn't eat all of it. Yeah, it was. What are we, okay, wait, there's board meetings?
It's called Remarkable.
Yeah, you have to watch this. You already like that. I'm gonna eat Wayne tonight.
It's like color involved. And I feel like, seriously, and if they target all this sort of like advertising against me. I see it. Every day I see it. Like, who's gonna be this guy? He's gonna upgrade. Oh, seriously. Like,
Alrighty.
I'm on the fence. It's close. Exactly.
Maybe feel better.
But also,
Why am I in this low chair? What is this?
Oh, you can raise it. It was a student's chair that was on the end.
My back is really.
It will raise up. Let me help you.
What do you do?
Well, I have to do it this way. I have to go.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes, I've had, here we go. I've had stools like that when I was directing music.
There you go.
I had a music stand that had a couple. Kids were jealous.
Right, I think we have everybody here. Go ahead and start our working session. I'll kick it over to Dr. Rumpus.
Thank you, President Bertrand, and thank you, Board, for being flexible. Still, I feel somewhat new to the district. I don't know that that's true anymore, but my understanding is in the old days, they would often combine work sessions with the business meeting. So they would get through the business, they'd pause and reset the room, and just to allow the board to engage in more of a dialogue with district leaders around different topics. And so we're excited tonight to share an initial high-level draft of the strategic planning work that we have been doing. Strategic planning for any organization provides a great opportunity to really come together, establishing where we want to be in the future and who we want to be as an organization. It is the process of establishing our direction, the priorities of the district, and ultimately allowing us to align our resources, both human resources and fiscal resources, to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our students, our staff, and our community. There are three questions that we've really focused on doing the work. One, where should we be focusing our efforts and resources over the next 5 years? So we're calling this the 2030 plan for Francis Howell, that we'll use the rest of this year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that to finish the detail, and then we'll have it in place as we start talking about staffing and the budget for next school year. Really thinking about what critical work demands our attention in the district, and so we look at data ongoing, but every couple of years you need to take a deep dive and really think about where you're at and where you want to be, and that idea of successive approximation and how do we get there, and what problems and opportunities do we have to address. This is a large district. There are a lot of things that we can do, and the reality is you can't do everything well, and we don't have the resources to do everything. So again, this is our opportunity as a community to prioritize. So we're excited to share this initial high-level draft with you. Once we have your feedback, we will bring this back to you, and pending approval of the plan next month, we then will begin the work of determining these specific initiatives and action steps that will fall under the 4 pillars that you outlined last year. So now I will turn it over to Jen Joles to get us started and really talk through the process up until this point. And each of the chiefs will speak to some of the work that will fall under their area of responsibility. We'll ask, if it works, to hold your questions until the end, kind of write them down. The pages are numbered. Just if there's a chance we might offer the answer on a later slide that'll help us get through it. And then after that, we're happy to engage in conversation with you. Ms. Joles.
Thank you, Dr. Rumpus. And as Ken mentioned, I'm going to be as brief as possible just to make sure we allow that time to get your feedback and input. So these are the topics we're going to cover tonight. As Ken mentioned, process to this point, the timeline for the remaining work. We're going to talk about the summary of the data that the strategic planning team reviewed, the SWOT analysis. We'll highlight some of the themes they came up with, and then we'll get into mission, vision, core values, and that draft 1 of the focus areas and KPIs for each pillar. And you have, as Ken mentioned, a hard copy of both the slides and then a draft of the document, kind of in a pretty format, if you will. So we'll go ahead and head in first with the planning process and timeline. You may recall that we started this work, you all started this work actually back in January with that board workshop. And that developed out of that were those 4 focus areas. We're now referring to those as pillars, so you'll hear us use that language, but really the focus areas you identified were academics, finances, great employees, and safety and security. We then spent about 5 months gathering input from stakeholders across the district, parents, students, staff, leaders, and community members. And during this phase, we launched a series of surveys and roundtables where we got a lot of that input. We had several focus group activities to get the feedback. I know a lot of our community felt survey fatigue during that period of time because if you look at the timelines there were maybe 3 or 4 surveys that went out in a period of just a few months. We are currently nearing the end of phase 3, and this is where the strategic planning team convened and has been working on the initial draft of the plan that we are going to share with you tonight, and we're going to talk more about their role in the specific work that they have done. And then pending your approval of the high-level plan, we would communicate widely with stakeholders in late November and December, and then phase 5, that's really where we get into the work on the specific strategies and action steps necessary to meet our targets. So let's talk about the work of the planning team before we get into what they came up with. I'm advancing both my slide here and this one, so give me a minute. So in August, we engaged a 21-member planning team made up of students, teachers, staff, parents, community members, leaders, and representatives from both FHEA and FESPA, and executive cabinet members served as advisors, each member working with one of those 4 pillars. This was the charge for the planning team, and you'll see here that this group is both an oversight group, really advising through this process, through this phase 3 process, and also a working group. They were tasked with reviewing hundreds of pages of data and stakeholder feedback, and then using that to develop the priority areas of focus for the new plan that we'll talk about here in just a moment. You can see here the series of meetings that this planning team has engaged in. They met in person first with a kickoff meeting at the end of August and had several homework assignments in between meetings to keep them busy. They participated in a big picture vision activity, and we'll talk a little more in detail about that in a second, and then spent the bulk of the time during that August meeting reviewing data and stakeholder feedback and started work on developing a SWOT analysis specific to their assigned pillar area. The group then reconvened about a month later to present their SWOT analysis to the full planning team and get some additional feedback. I'll share a summary of those SWOTs with you shortly. And they spent the majority of that meeting in September drafting the priority areas of focus for their assigned pillar, and also captured some initial ideas on how we might measure our success through key performance indicators, which we'll also share with you. During that work too, we encouraged them, if they were getting into more of a tactical level, like here's a great idea we should implement, we captured those, and we would envision that those would be turned over with the pillar advisors and the teams that will do that next layer of work, thinking about how we accomplish these larger priorities. After that work, Executive Cabinet spent some time finessing the language and refining the KPIs before bringing this first draft to you tonight. And so, as we've mentioned, we hope to capture your feedback today and bring that back to the planning team. They have another meeting at the end of this month on October 30th. We'll take that feedback along with some additional feedback from groups and prepare a draft too, and bring that back at the November 21st meeting would be our goal, and hopefully then move to that next layer of the work. So here are that big picture exercise I talked about, one of the first exercises the planning team undertook. And we asked them really 3 questions before we got into the nitty-gritty details and reviewing the data. We wanted them to take a moment to kind of zoom out and think about how the future might look different than our current reality. So they used these 3 prompts you see on the screen to consider what our students and employees might need in the next 5 to 10 years. So things like, what will students of the future need? How do we need to think differently about the future of our workforce? And then if successful in 5 years, where do we want to be? What do we hope to accomplish? And how will the district look different today than it does now? Will it look different in 5 years than it does today? And you're going to see some of those themes reflected in the final planning document when we talk about vision. After the zoom out, it was time to drill down. So each pillar area was provided a thick binder full of data to review. You can see that here on the next slide. They looked at trends related to student enrollment and demographics, student behavior, class sizes, staffing, teacher pay, staff retention, student attendance, a lot of the MSIP 6 data and the academic proficiency data that Dr. Buckman presented last month. And then We got through that, and then we got lots of qualitative data. So you remember the phase 2 where we're collecting lots of survey data, focus groups, those sorts of things. They looked at that as well. So here's kind of a summary of that. So starting with the Board of Education workshop back in January, we had notes from that meeting provided to them. The Culture and Climate Roundtable that we hosted in February, each of those table hosts would take notes about the conversation at the table. Those were provided. And then the Culture and Climate Survey results from March. We also conducted an initial strategic planning survey, started in March, closed in April, so that data was provided. We did an exercise with administrators at an all-administrator meeting last spring in April. Those notes were provided. That strategic planning roundtable that we hosted in May, again, they saw all of those notes as well. And then the annual stakeholder survey that we presented just a month or two ago, that data was part of what they looked at as well. The planning team then got to work on a SWOT analysis based on the data and feedback reviewed, and we did stress with them, like everyone on the team was really bringing, obviously naturally bringing their own perspectives into it, but we really wanted their SWOT to be based on the data and feedback so that it was really amplifying the other voices in the community. Each pillar, academics, finance, grade employees, and safety and security, assessed the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats related to their specific area, and they presented their SWOT analyses at the September planning meeting. And I'll highlight, and I'll tell you this next slide, it's pretty busy, but we took those 4 separate SWOTs in each area, and I just kind of put everything here on one slide. So it might be easier to read with that copy at your table. You might be able to read it a little better. So I won't read all of this to you, but a few themes to stand out if you kind of look at these individual items. The quality of the academic program, the breadth of the academic offerings, and our amazing educators. And again, that echoes those themes we saw in that stakeholder survey feedback when we ask our community about strengths. This is always one of the top things that stands out. Many of our safety protocols, things like our security vestibules, emergency drills, and threat assessment processes were mentioned here. Some of our employee benefits were highlighted, such as the sick leave bank, paid time off over winter break, LEAP program, new teacher onboarding, and recent increases to teacher salary schedules were all mentioned as strengths here. We then, again, they also assessed the weaknesses that they saw in the data. Some of those include staffing gaps, turnover in key positions, upcoming retirements, aging infrastructure and capacity concerns at some schools, and limited resources, whether that's money, time, training, support. Those were all sort of themes that came up through weaknesses. And then for opportunities, we really asked them to look at external factors that could positively impact the district in the future, or, as is often the case when you're doing a SWOT, opportunities often emerge as just the kind of the flip side of a weakness that we could improve. So you'll see some of those sort of opposites of what you saw in the weakness here. Some of these you'll notice are more at the tactical level and could very well be included as action items in the final plan. But as I think Dr. Rumpus alluded to, there are many opportunities for school districts, and those like us that are committed to continuous improvement, we know we can't do everything and do it well. So again, I want to just clarify that not all of these things will show up as things that we would pursue. But you'll see here that some of the themes reflected in the data for opportunities include competitive wages and benefits to attract and retain quality staff, intentional legislative advocacy at the state level, increased collaboration with other school districts, and an opportunity to increase community partnerships and alumni involvement, and then work around culture and climate, things like anti-bullying efforts, equipping with students with soft skills, ensuring welcoming learning and working environments. And then finally, threats. Again, these are external factors that we need to be aware of that could impact our progress. So themes that emerged here would be funding issues that might be tied to legislation or things that are out of our direct control. Teacher shortages. We know that there are fewer candidates entering the profession. Community perceptions of public schools, false narratives, and the influence of politics in education, increase in school violence, threats, and data breaches. And so it's important to note that each activity that was taken on by the strategic planning team during this focused unit of work was intentionally designed to build on the next and to really force us to look at the data and stakeholder feedback, and again, not just the opinions and perspectives of the individuals in the room. The SWOT analysis for each pillar informed the priorities that you'll see reflected in the plan we'll be presenting tonight. And that kind of turns our attention to the other handout that you have with you, kind of this designed version, and you're welcome to continue looking at the screen, or if you would like to look at that document, we'll walk through these different components. I think, again, as a reminder, this early version of the plan does not include those specific tactics or the how, but it's really a statement of priorities to guide our work, and then that additional work around the how would come later after your input and approval. So first up, let's look at mission, vision, and values. So the mission here, as you heard someone at the podium read today, let me get on the right slide here for you. This is not changed at all. So this is our current mission, empowering students to be lifelong learners prepared for the future. We did ask in that strategic planning survey how the community felt about that. Was that still relevant? And if something like 85% said yes, like it's good, leave it alone. So that would be our recommendation, is this, we would leave the mission in place. The vision, you recall that big picture Zoom exercise that we had the strategic planning team undertake. So a lot of these statements you see here stem from those conversations. So by the year 2030, the Francis Howell School District will be regarded as one of the top 5% high-performing districts in the state. We would be the employer of choice for talented educators, leaders, and staff. We would be fiscally sound with a track record of smart and long-term planning. We would be known for graduating well-rounded students who are equipped with the skills and experiences they need to be successful in the world. We would be celebrated for the work we've done on culture, morale, and ensuring all members of our community feel safe and welcome. And finally, we would be trusted by families and the community to make good decisions and to do what's best for students. So that really is intended to capture where we would like to be when we're standing or sitting in this room. Maybe 5 years from now, we would like to be able to say, look at the progress we've made. This is who the Francis Howell School District is now. The other component of this, we developed some new values for consideration. You may recall that our current values are, there's really 8 sort of bulleted words, if you will. Some of them have multiple words, so it's really 14 different characteristics make up our current values. I think they were developed during the last strategic planning process. We had some feedback from the strategic planning survey and others that indicated there were really just too many words to remember, and they didn't have a lot of meaning behind them. They were great words, but that maybe we could do something a little different. So what you see here is our attempt to capture some of those behaviors, attributes, and actions that we hope to see reflected in all members of the Francis Howell community. So we pursue growth in learning. We strive to be a little better and a little brighter every day. Effort and perseverance lead to excellence for all. We focus on what matters. People, relationships, and strategic priorities deserve our attention every day. We spend time and money wisely. Strong stewardship requires, thank you, try to read through that, someone's had here. Requires long-term planning, smart systems, and efficient actions. We are kind and safe. We act with integrity and are accountable for the things we say and the choices we make. Words and actions matter. And we embody one Howell. The power of our community shines when we find common ground, lend a helping hand, and work together for a common purpose. So we know that simply defining core values isn't enough, right? It's really about how we live them as an organization. So if this is something we move forward with, there would be intentional efforts to really incorporate these things into our culture and our practices and encourage students, staff, and community members to really embrace and live these core values. Now moving into our focus areas, we asked that planning team to take their SWOT analysis and consider all the data and feedback they've reviewed and use that knowledge to draft those priority areas of focus for the district over the next 5 years. We instructed them, as you've heard before tonight, to keep these fairly broad in nature and avoid drilling down to that super tactical level at this stage. So again, you won't see those specific action steps in this particular draft. We also asked the teams to develop an initial list of KPIs to measure our success. And so when we get to the draft here in a minute, there are blanks in many areas because we want to get your input on what those specific targets might look like. But we've given some thought to what those areas we might measure could be, and where there was an obvious target to put in place, you'll see it, but that we'll kind of get into why there are blanks in others. And so with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to each of the pillar advisors to talk through their focus areas and KPIs. And I think Dr. Buckman is up first, who advised the teaching and learning pillar group.
Right, so you can see on the document that our overall goal was to rank in the top 5% of all public K-12 school districts in the state by 2030. And so when we thought about how we would get there, the group really landed on 3 big buckets of work. You can see the first bucket addresses overall student achievement through instructional practice, aligned curriculum with resources, and then the skills that prepare our students for life. When we think about what I think Jen referred to it as the tactics or the actions that would fall into those buckets, the group had a lot of conversation. And so we see this work looking like a focus on our student groups. So those are the students that are identified by DESE as our students with IEPs, direct certification, Hispanic, Black, or part of our ESOL program, those 5 student groups we often talk about. We know that some of the students in those state-identified groups, they're further from our target, and we want to make sure that we're doing all we can to ensure that they are successful. The group spent a lot of time talking about that. We spent a lot of time talking about our curriculum updates, vertical alignment, making sure that our assessments are updated and aligned with curriculum standards, the state assessment, and then making sure that all of our courses have updated resources to support those curriculum documents. We also talked a lot about just soft skills, and so when you think of that workforce readiness report and what our employers tell us that kids need to have, those critical thinking, collaboration, solid communication, writing, verbal skills, that was kind of what we talked about with soft skills. And then we also talked about some of those executive functioning study skills. Where are we teaching kids time management, taking notes, things like that. We spent some time talking about just the implementation of an instructional model and what goes into an instructional model, the components of that. And then the team also talked a lot about consistency in grading practices and reporting systems across content areas and across buildings. We see that as being some of the work in this bucket. And then in the surveys, there was a lot of conversation around just technology integration. What does digital citizenship look like? How are we supporting learning and preparing our kids to be successful in a digital world? And then finally, just implementing that literacy plan that's required by Senate Bill 681. The second bucket, it really focuses on supporting our students to make sure that they're receiving that targeted instruction that addresses the needs of each learner. And so when we think about what the work in that bucket would look like, it would be that comprehensive MTS, multi-tiered system of support, MTSS model for academics. It would look at increasing student engagement, so making sure in every classroom all of our kids are highly engaged in what's happening, not just physically but cognitively. And then more of an integration of those soft skills, those life readiness study skills. And then evaluating our alternative learning programs, so thinking about our students in the ESOL program and the gifted program and the special education program, examining each of those programs and deciding if there's any next steps that are needed. And then we wrapped up with a third bucket, which focused on our college and career readiness, so ensuring our students have access to programs, personalized planning, and then opportunities for those real-world experiences. And when we thought through what the work in that area might look like, we envisioned engaging students and families in that college and career planning. So how are we incorporating families into that planning process? There was a lot of conversation about just rethinking how we advise students from middle school all through high school with that 4-year plan and course selection and their extra activities and the programs we have and how do you know which ones might be a good fit for you. We talked a lot about expanding our college and career programming, so the pathways and job opportunities that we have now in 2030, wanting more opportunities, different opportunities, additional opportunities for our students. And then with that came a lot of discussion around seeing that as an opportunity to increase community involvement in some of those programs and opportunities. How are we partnering with our local employers? And then finally, just ensuring that we have strongly integrated those workforce readiness report skills that our local employers tell us. So we often think that our kids are 100% ready for what comes after high school, and our local employers tell us that's a little false. They want to see that our kids are able to think critically, collaborate, work with others, and then those verbal and written skills as they apply to the workplace. And so then we had some conversation about how would we measure that, what would that look like. Oh, thanks. It is, and there's 2 different ones. And so we identified some KPIs that we would likely track when we thought through what the data might look like. And you'll see some of those expected data points, the state assessment data, some reading proficiency data at several different grade levels. We also want to make sure that we're watching our students who are in an intervention to make sure that they're showing growth as they participate in that intervention. We would look at our students who are on track to graduate credit-wise at the end of 9th grade. That's very telling for us. And then as part of the work, the strategic plan work, we develop a portrait of a graduate. So what is it that we want to, what would a successful graduate look like? And then we would take a look and monitor the percentage of students who are hitting a percentage of those portrait of a graduate indicators. And then finally, we would develop a survey of sorts that students would take that would provide us with some information about how well we supported that college and career planning process. So their course selection, their extracurricular, the college and career planning, the program participation that they had throughout their 4-year career.
All right, pillar 2, people and the workforce. It is our goal by 2030 that we will be the destination district and the employer of choice in our region. Attracting and retaining and planning for strong leaders, strong teachers to support the learning of our students is what's most important. So we identified 3 focus areas in order to do that. First is workforce planning. It is really taking that time to consider what positions, what functions do we need in this district to assure that we have appropriate levels of staffing so that we're meeting all of the needs of students and all of the critical functions of our district to function as a great organization. So in this focus area, we would be looking at things like having consistent staffing. We have a history in Francis Howell where we have made staffing reductions, added staffing, made staffing reductions. And so if we can really focus that time and really plan for consistent staffing levels, that gives all of our employees that sense of security that they're going to be here for the long term. So we'll look at things like class sizes in all areas and in all programs. We'll look at the different types of positions that we have to support our employees. One of the examples was a cybersecurity team that could focus on some of that work, or just different areas, talent acquisition. Do we have a focus area for that work? So really looking at that and finding out what are those strategic levels, making sure we have the appropriate leadership in all areas to support the needs of our staff and our families and our students. And then as we work through that, making sure that our employees have good work-life balance and that they're not stressed as they're working through all of the things that are required within their position. When we look at staff recruitment, it really is all things to attract highly qualified staff to support our students. And that might look like our employer brand and really looking at the total rewards package that we offer to all of our employees. So of course, having a competitive salary, affordable benefits, talking about our leave policies, whether that's FMLA or short-term disability, looking at how we can possibly get those steps on our salary schedule to equal years of experience because that's important in the field of education, talking about attendance incentives, experience on the salary schedule so that we can attract more experienced educators to Francis Howell would all be some ways that we could attract quality staff and bring great people to Francis Howell. And then finally, our third focus area was all about motivating and retaining staff so that they continue to grow and that they can then turn their growth into growth for our students. And so we talked a lot about what that would look like, and some of the options or thoughts that came into that was just civility in the workplace, being kind to one another, making sure people feel safe to come to work, feeling comfortable about doing the work, timely and relevant professional development around some of the areas of focus, whether that's onboarding employees or whether that's just throughout their career, making sure it's timely. We have started a great Howell Grown Educators program, but looking at maybe expanding that to some other areas. How are we looking at opportunities for advancement for our employees? Are there some attendance incentives or other recognition programs that we can improve on? How do we support our teachers when they go through student trauma or have trauma within their day? And then also just looking at that timely and relevant coaching and mentoring that we're providing, because if we can pour into our educators and into our staff, that keeps them feeling valued and appreciated and wanted to stay here in Francis Howell, and then they have the opportunity to pour into our students. In those three areas, some ways that we can measure our success, if those are the focus areas and action steps that we follow, we'll look at those staffing levels year to year and make sure that they're consistent in providing that assurance to our staff that they can feel rested assured that they have a position here in Francis Howell. We'll set a standard for class size. We've moved that in the past from looking closer to the minimum of the DESE standard to more the midpoint to just above the midpoint. And so where do we want to land as a district, and what do those administrator ratios need to look like to really provide support to our teachers? We'll think about looking at the percentage of staff that's satisfied with their employment. So maybe looking at a stay survey, not so much the exit survey, but how do you feel while you're still here? And then looking at the percentage of teachers that we're attracting that are fully certified. So over the course of years, in order to fill our positions, we've had to look at temporary certificates, provisional certificates, in order to be sure that we have educators for our positions. And so what are we doing to really attract those fully certified teachers? And then when we're making those job offers, are folks excited and yelling and screaming? That's really the best part of my job, when I'm calling and offering them a position in Francis Howell. Or are more and more of them saying, can I get back with you? Can I wait a few days? Those sorts of things. So we'll monitor how many of the first choice job applicants accept those offers. We also want to look at how many teachers are leaving Francis Howell to go to other public schools in the area, or maybe they're leaving the profession as a whole because it's not doable, or they're so stressed or full of anxiety. And so we want to monitor that. And then also looking at a focus of our teacher attendance, just like we do with our students, because if our teachers are the most critical person in the classroom every single day, and if we can motivate and encourage them to be at work every day, we know that's going to have an impact on our student performance.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so while this is an equal pillar, I look at it much like it is a very strong support pillar to do all the other things that are needed for our students and our staff within the district. And so under finance and operations, we have identified 3 primary areas, and this is to help us be fiscally sound and an efficient organization. You know that this is something that we talk about every single month, and so ensuring that we have the appropriate financial trajectory as we identify the needs and reassess allocations of those resources. So the first one being resource allocation, and we all know that in public education we don't have a lot of revenue growth opportunities. You can capitalize on grants, but those usually come with more expenditures, and so you have to be very strategic and thoughtful about the process you might do that. Otherwise, we're receiving revenue based on particular formulas and allocations, either be county or state or federal. And so allocating those resources in a financially sustainable, needs-based manner to support education of all students by maximizing the revenue, aligning expenditures to meet our priorities, and controlling costs. And so oftentimes I've referenced this as a weed the garden section, where we maybe did something at some point in the past that was really great for kids, but as we identify new opportunities through other processes, then maybe we need to reallocate those resources and no longer provide a particular option for students. And so that would be that aligning expenditures to meet priorities and controlling costs. Under process improvement, we have utilized cross-functional stakeholder teams to collaborate, research, and implement best practices for process improvement and operational efficiency in all areas of the district. So this would not be limited to just finance and those operational areas that report through my section, but it would also include, it could involve instructional leaders and departments and areas that they're doing things. You know, maybe we form a stakeholder team to really dig in deeply to attendance and what strategy might we deploy through all those processes and observations in terms of improving that, which would ultimately improve our instruction for kids because they're here, but also it would generate revenue in the state of Missouri because we are paid from attendance. So mostly under process improvement, again, identifying champions that would lead the work and being very intentional in approaching how we're looking at our daily business. Then under service and compliance, we obviously always have a variety of audits. Dr. Rumpus just referenced an inspection that occurred today, and we had a great, or it was this week, maybe it was today, in the transportation area regarding our bus fleet, meeting that high standard, and just working very diligently to ensure that we're, not only are we providing great service to our stakeholders, whether they be internal or external, but also making sure that we are compliant with all of those parties that would be interested in what we're doing.
So we have a financial audit every year. We do have bus inspections every year, and sometimes surprise bus inspections. And there are a variety of other ways that we are monitored through federal compliance, whether it be special education or other things like that. So under the KPIs, so the team, I should reference that the team basically, we talked a lot about all of these sections, and really these 3 categories resonated for everyone that was participating. So we had a great dialogue. We kind of went down rabbit holes a few times and maybe talked a little bit about security or academics even. It was an interesting participation for me. The key performance indicators that we've identified at this point in time, but we are looking forward to your feedback for us. We know that we have a board policy that indicates that we'll maintain a 15% or higher fund balance percentage. And part of the reason that it's 15% is because that is the point where we are covering our payroll until we receive our local revenue more in the months of January and February. Maintaining a bond rating of AA or greater is always a good thing, and that means that we're paying our bills on a timely basis. It means that there are individuals and entities that would be interested in investing in our district by buying bonds, should there be a bond issue. And certainly the 0 audit findings. No one ever wants to have audit findings, but under that financial audit perspective, sometimes there can be something that's noted, and we would strive to ensure that that was maintained. We have an item here, operating expenditures within X% of the revised budget, so identifying what would that look like and maybe tease that out in a different way. X% of future bond projects meet budget and timeline would be a goal that we would aspire to achieve. X% agree the district spends taxpayer funds effectively, and so that would come through that stakeholder survey that Jen Joles has communicated recently with you about. I did include in here facility master plan completed by November 2025. Of course, that date could be at the pleasure of the board, or maybe there would be other discussion about whether that would happen anytime soon, but we recognize that we do need to reset in that regard to inform you and the public of the real needs in the district so that we can be strategic as we move forward in planning all the years out. Excuse me. Percentage of benchmarks met for identified standards, and so that could be very fluid. Again, we had a number of conversations on those specific areas, and that could include processing work orders in a timely fashion or eliminating work orders because we are proactively taking care of the needs out in the buildings, and that could be technology, that can be through the maintenance of our HVAC systems, filter replacements, a variety of topics. So, and then the last one noted is a percent of equipment replaced within industry standards. So again, we've got to not only take care of our building assets as we serve our students, but also ensure that we're providing the appropriate equipment to meet their needs as well. And that also includes then not only within the classroom, but we are running a business here, and so we do need vehicles, and we do need buses, and a great variety of equipment. And so that would wrap that up for finance and operations. You don't want this, do you?
I don't know what to say. I could read it.
Yeah. Oh, I'll do it for you. How about
Yeah, that would be great.
I'm so good at this.
All right, well, that brings us to our fourth and final pillar to discuss, and that's in the area of safety and security, with a goal that all students and staff will be safe and welcome at school and work. And I would just echo Ms. Embry's sentiments regarding her pillar and the importance of this pillar when it comes to academic success and retention and recruitment of teachers. If we don't have a safe and secure environment, we don't achieve those other things as well. And so this pillar, we're going to focus on 3 major areas. The first one being culture, climate, and communication. And the idea in this pillar would be that we work, that the work is focused on students and their connections to the Francis Howell School District community. That could be within their building, but also within the district at large. that staff and students have the supports that they need to be successful and connected. That also helps in that recruitment and retention. That we seek continuous feedback from all the stakeholders throughout our community. Our community members are the individuals that are connected to us and help us in ways, not only financially, but with ideas about improvements on a daily basis. And then finally, under this focus area, that we have positive supports in place to support both students and faculty. The next focus area is kind of in a focus on physical security, and we've done a lot of that work through some of the Prop S funds, but we know that there's always things that we can do to create a better environment. And so this work will focus in the area of looking at our buildings and processes to provide safety for all students and staff. And so that would be things like a continuous monitoring of the safety protocols that we are instituting in our buildings, that we would be completing safety audits and implementations of the recommendations that come from those audits, a continuous review of security trends and implementation of those recommendations, and then finally that we would continue ongoing work with our local law enforcement experts. One of the things that we know about safety and security is it should always change. It should always be updated based upon trends or things that have happened, and we should learn from the experiences across our country and across the world, to be honest. And then focus area 3, also data privacy and protection. And this work will focus in the areas to include all aspects of student and staff data privacy. I think we understand the importance of that in Francis Howell. That work might look like training for all staff and students on responsible technology use. It might look like the implementation of effective strategies to protect all district data, both student and employee data. And then it would be continuous monitoring of district systems using industry best practice standards and implementing those in the district. Some of the key performance indicators that we talked about within our group, things that might measure success of safety and security, would be the percent of students that feel safe at school, the percent of our staff that feel safe at work on a daily basis, a percent of reduction in the number of disciplinary referrals, possibly focusing on those top 3 areas that we see in the district, a percent of high school students that are involved in one or more activities at our high school. That could even pertain to elementary and middle school if that became one of the focus areas of our KPI. A percent pass rate on physical building safety audits. We should be continuing to monitor our buildings and make sure we're providing safety at the highest level. Measuring the percent of fidelity and executing our emergency drills. Percent of people that feel that they are connected, engaged in Francis Howell. So getting some feedback from students, staff, and community members. And then identifying vulnerabilities in our cybersecurity scans and phishing attempts on an ongoing basis. And then finally, the percent rate that the efforts that the community gives us an A or B on the stakeholder community survey that we implement on an ongoing basis. And those are some suggested KPIs that our team developed to share with the board this evening. At this time, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Rumpus or Jen Joels.
Yeah, so board, we want to provide the next period of time really to answer questions you might have based on the information that we shared this evening, thoughts on the specific goal focus areas under each of the 4 pillars, and then if there are specific questions around the KPIs that we are looking at. A piece of feedback, as Ms. Joel shared, that we heard over and over again was that while the last strategic plan definitely was innovative, there was a lot of great work in there, it was a significant plan. It was a lot of new. And again, we don't have the resources, either human or fiscal, to do all of the things, even if we would like to. And so tried to narrow our focus to these 4 areas, and that'll be a continued theme that you will hear as we move forward when we talk about strategies and action steps again, that everything we're doing, is it moving us toward achieving these 4 areas and the goals that we have within them. So we would be happy to answer questions you might have, or at least take the feedback and work on getting it for you.
I got one for Carol, F&O, my favorite. 0 audit findings. Is that attainable?
Well,
realistic, I should
yeah,
say.
It can absolutely be. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, my answer to you is yes. It is attainable. Now, that's with everything. You know, we will strive to do our very best and deliver in all aspects that we would be monitored. Will there potentially be some things occur sometimes? Yes, but I think that would always be our focus. We wouldn't want to set the bar lower because
No, it's always something to strive for.
Yes.
But at the same time, having been involved in audits, both at the hospital level and in industry and corporate world, ooh, I can only think of maybe in all my years of experience, maybe one or none that ever happened. So I'm just, I understand reaching higher than you're comfortable with. Okay.
Yes.
I get it. The other thing that I was going to mention to you, Carol, my belief is that in finance and operations, if a person leaves for whatever reason, you need that continuity. It's not always, nobody can just walk into your job. Can't do it. So I would just add maybe a key performance indicator that continuity occurs. I don't know how you would word that, but I'm just saying so that nothing is lost in the process.
So really more on the system process level.
Yeah, succession planning.
Yeah.
And I will say that, and I'm sure my colleagues struggled with it too, we could have a laundry list of all the things that we're really measuring and looking at, or all the processes that we're implementing to guard against that. Excuse me. And so that's of interest to me too. Do some things need to come off of the actual published list? It doesn't mean that we wouldn't continue to monitor things beyond.
Speaking of lists, how's your list?
It's a slow turn. It's a slow turn.
I would just clarify, in case it wasn't clear, we're undergoing this state audit, but that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about our yearly, annual audits.
Right, our routine audits.
We hope to only have one of those.
Right, we hope to be. Yes.
Other questions, comments, board? Feedback?
I have a question. On a vision regarded as one of the top 5% high-performing districts in the state, what number is that we're aiming for? Because it's for top 10 in the state, I'm wondering what the aspiration is on that number. Top 5% high-performing district in the state.
I think those are 2 different systems that we're talking about. So this would be when we look at APR. I believe right now we're around 6 to 7%. But those districts that we would have to pass to be in the top 5%, that would be a great accomplishment for us to get there.
So what is the metric?
It's a wide range of items. So it's when we do the academic update, all of those different categories we talk about, it's all of those different categories combined.
I think the APR.
APR is the term. Gotcha. So this is, I appreciate that.
Yeah, so primarily student achievement, overall subgroup achievement, looking at our attendance and college career readiness indicators, overall student attendance in the district. And then there's also process standards. So are we doing our annual survey? Are we submitting reports on time? Are we meeting some of the fiscal thresholds? The difference, while again I celebrate because we all like being ranked in the good news, the niche, US News, and there's a lot of subjectivity, and there's other factors that go into that are out of our control as well. And I would like to believe that a lot of the factors under MSIP and APR we do have within our control.
Thank you.
Staying on that topic of, really the first pillar or check mark in our vision regarded as one of the top 5% high-performing districts in the state. Maybe a technicality, but I look at this and I think, yes, I think we're all thinking the same thing. We want to grow. We want our APR scores to improve, but the other districts slip. magically become in the top 5% because the other districts are doing awful. I wonder if there's just a way to better define that we want to improve. We don't just want to be in the 5%, but we want to see real growth here as well.
And I realize we're not getting into all the weeds, but when it comes to the indicators, the key performance indicators, having some place where we can identify parent involvement seems to be one of the biggest indicators for students' academic success. So whatever that looks like, how do we measure it? I don't know what that answer is right now, but having some way where we are tracking parent involvement, I think will be a lead measure, and student academic achievement will be a lag measure that falls behind it.
I think I would agree with that. I think that if you probed all of the districts throughout the country, and you see the districts that have a higher percentage of parental involvement, those districts are typically performing better. And to track that, to see where we would fall in there, and then maybe use that as a guide to see, all right, well, last year we were here with parental involvement, this year we're here and we're doing better, or this year we're lower and we're doing worse. That could be a pretty clear indicator as to how to project these things going forward. If we know that the parents aren't involved, they're not paying attention, they're not really engaged in their kids' education at all, that I think is a big driver of the lack of success of the student, for sure. I mean, we all do all we can to make sure that they're successful when they're here with us, but at home, it's, I know when my daughter gets home, it's, we're not doing TV until the homework is done. And if I wasn't engaged, it's the homework's not done, she gets to the classroom the next day. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, I would just offer to both of you, I think that's a yes and, because I think, yes, it's absolutely an indicator, and parental involvement is important. It's also a question of what parental involvement means to different families. I'll be very honest that Ken Rumpus's dad is probably 50% on conferences in the last 2 years, and I've never been to a PTO meeting. So I might not check those boxes, but it's because of the work that I'm doing. And so I just, yes, and is it also about what opportunities we're offering and how we're reaching out to parents to engage them, understanding that some may never get to a school event, but might be reading this and just, So I just think we would need to give some thought to how we might measure that or what that might look like.
And I've got a question for Mr. Delaney. You had the physical security, safety and security part of this pillar. Jane and I have kind of dug into this, and we all have our things with safety and security, but as far as the actual physical security of the buildings is concerned, how is the staffing for that? Is that, are we there? Do we have everybody that we need? Is that something that you guys are constantly looking at? I'm sure you are, I hope. But there have been times when we've talked to certain people, and they've indicated, man, we could use some more help. We could use help in this building or that building. So is that something that you guys are continually looking at as well?
Yeah, I would just say that part of our annual staffing process looks at what building needs are. That's a piece to it. But I would also say that, like the safety audit that we're about to have engaging next week, I think we are depending upon experts in that area, in that field, to tell us where they see opportunities for growth for us. In addition, I think it's pertinent that we're working with local law enforcement to help guide us in some of what they see as day-to-day maybe issues, concerns, thoughts, ideas. So I would say that, and also what works for today may have to change next year or 2 years. And I think that's one of the things that throughout that pillar, I tried to convey that you're never done with safety and security. It's always evolving. You have to change, you have to adapt. And we're going to adapt and change by depending upon experts in the field Sometimes it's going to be through what Ms. Embry is engaging us with, bringing in this outside kind of group to take a look. But it's also just engaging with the daily people that are in our community, our law enforcement officers, those experts that are connected to our buildings. And so I hope that kind of gives you an answer that yes, we reflect on staffing and those needs all the time. But I think we also have to engage with the people that are the experts in that field, which is not Mark Delaney.
Right. Yeah, it's one of the things that I go back to is I just think about maybe Mr. Griesenauer and how just asking him, reaching out to him, and saying, hey, are you good? Are you overstaffed? Are you understaffed? Is the outlook of the safety of the district where it needs to be in your eyes as well? Do you need more people? That's one of my main concerns. Every day when I drop off my kids, I think about that exact thing, and is this building secure? Is it? And they absolutely are, for sure, with some of the vestibules and things like that we put in. But it doesn't stop at the vestibules. It goes into someone like Jason Griesenauer and his staff, and making sure that they are staffed and enough to be able to cover the entire district. So that's good that you guys are looking at that too.
Thank you.
And to clarify, though, I don't want there to be a misconception that there is no staff. There is a safety manager in the district, there are leaders over it, and we are very fortunate through our relationships with local law enforcement agencies to have full-time SROs in many of our buildings, but we do not have that in all. And I know that's been it's an ongoing concern that comes up, and it was a point of contention in our recent newsletter that went out that stated that, and it wasn't intentionally misleading. We do have several elementaries, and we don't broadcast that because, again, safety and security, but we do not have full-time SROs at every single building. We do not have one in this building. And so we have been so fortunate when St. Charles County, offered up with their AR funds.
I don't know how to say it.
They're wrong, but to provide them to us. If you had asked us, 3 to 5 years ago, would we have made the investment in SROs at the elementaries at that time? It would have been a philosophical discussion. I don't know if we would have definitely said yes. Now having them in our buildings, seeing the relationships they've developed, what that does for the community, if that's a commitment and we want to commit to having that in all 23 sites, or what does that look like? At some point, the county could say we can no longer afford to fund those, and that would be a significant impact. But again, it's back to if that's the commitment and that's where we want to land with staffing. And we do hope that we get a lot of that feedback from professionals in the field through this analysis that we're having done over the next couple of weeks.
I wanted to call out what I think is just a really wise picture of financial management. On the very front page when it talks about our vision, fiscally sound with a track record of smart long-term planning. I think in our meeting today we identified how HVAC 1, the first collection of HVACs that are being repaired or replaced will produce so much savings each year, and I think that serves as a great model for what this looks like in every area, right? Is to look to see, what are the areas, whether it's HVAC or something else, that we know are near their end of use, right? And just being able to be thinking ahead of time, like this says, I think is something that can provide a lot of savings, and we get a chance to use that elsewhere. So again, a lot of the language here is just very well done, and so for everybody, Jennifer, for you and everybody else involved, I really thank you for presenting this in a way that's digestible, and yet there's certain terms that are especially strong, and for me this language of financial management that has a track record of smart long-term planning is an easy picture to have. We've all done that in our own homes, in our own budgets, when we plan 4 years ahead, 5 years ahead, and I'm just really thankful to see that there in the way that it is.
I know it's a draft, of course, but a couple of the key performance indicators, I would just recommend focusing on something specifically measurable and controllable. So some of these, I think, kind of, for instance, percent of students in intervention will show growth. Does that incentivize a school tracking intervention programs, or does it disincentivize them? So that's what I mean is if we're focusing does it really matter if we have more students this year on an intervention program? Maybe it's a reflection that that's what's needed, or some changes needed. I don't know that that's necessarily a good or bad thing, but like focusing on something you can control, the proficient, advanced, those are a reflection, I think, of is the curriculum working, is the teaching methods, is everything working? I think that's more measurable than really an intervention program, because sometimes they're needed. I don't think it's a reflection on the kids or the teachers. It's just a point in time. And same thing would be of, for instance, percent reduction in the number of discipline referrals. Maybe this year I have more bad apples in the classroom, so I have more referrals or something. I don't think you want to disincentivize somebody referring what is needed. So
You're kind of saying, how do you clarify that so it's not?
Yeah, I mean,
do you need just as many referrals, but we just chose not to do it so that the goal looks good?
Or say that some of these are, does it really mean anything? What does it mean? Are you measuring something else that really impacts that?
Well, I've seen that as a real negative in a school, when they are striving to have less discipline published, so they let things go.
Right.
And I've seen that year after year in many schools I've taught in.
And I would think that would lead to frustration, so I don't want to know that you would incentivize not referring or not counting a discipline issue.
Yeah, Ron, I would say it's a good point, and we can continue to look at that. It's interesting because I often say, we'll hear from teachers that, well, they're not, and we're having this discussion Monday night, right? But we don't suspend kids, we don't do this and that because we're told our numbers are too high. And I ask people, who told you that? Because at least in the 4 years I've been in this district, we have never told somebody your numbers are too high. Now, if we're looking at the system and we see areas where the numbers are high and we need to question, do we have the right systems in place? Are we training our staff well? Do we have the right expectations of our students? And based on that, we would expect the numbers to be responsive to that, yes. But I also say to people, you look at our discipline referral data the last couple of years, it's going up. So it's nobody's saying don't do it, but your point is also correct. Sometimes in these you can have great systems and the people and the students, and it's just the nature of the work that the numbers don't necessarily come down in that way when you're trying to measure them that way.
So I would just say you could fine tune some of these. Maybe you don't need fewer than X percent of teachers resigned to leave the profession. Well, if you take care of if the staff is satisfied, a percent of the teachers are hired and fully certified. If you take care of the critical items, that item takes care of itself. So I would just drill down on some of these. So for instance, if we increase the percent of students achieving proficient advanced, if you help the student group, if we improve that, if you improve the reading grade levels, you don't necessarily need to track graduation. It's going to improve. So you help the students early on, help them with their proficiency in advance, you're going to increase your graduation. But I'm just...
That just may be a little bit, we're going to add on, and we're thinking through, like, there's still a lot of metrics, thinking through, like, what are the primary ones? Which ones are the ones that are really do we think are really going to move the needle, and still continuing to narrow down and say, going back to like focus, like what are those focused ones that we really want to push and really, because we also have to think about, do we have the staffing to drive? Each one of these metrics theoretically should have a staff member driving that metric, and do we have enough staff members that have the time to drive these individual metrics? Some areas we may, like maybe in academics, we have some more people than we have in HR that can drive, so we kind of got to pick and choose and say, is the staffing level right for those goals? I would also say, like, what's the one or two metrics kind of that we would grade the entire district on? Is that be in the top 5%, and then everything else is kind of, I don't want to say subservient, but all the other goals kind of need to also align, like HR's, like everything else needs to align to that goal as well, or else then you have competing pillars of different goals.
I was wondering about critical thinking skills. Did I miss that in here? Or do skills refer to that, just the word skills under student achievement?
Yep, you're in the right spot. When we talk about the skills, we talked about like those soft skills and those workforce readiness skills and critical thinking, collaboration, that all falls in that bucket.
So will that be written out in here?
It won't necessarily, our plan at the moment, the draft doesn't necessarily have it written out in the goals that you see. Where we see it coming is that next layer that Jen talked
Okay.
about, the tactics and the action steps, that you would
Okay.
see it reflected in that next layer. It's the work that will help us
Okay,
achieve these.
that's what I was wondering. I saw a segment on TV about Finland, their education system, and it's consistently at the top in the world. And they credit that to starting in preschool, where I don't know if you saw this, where the students, they get information, like books or online, well, they're online a lot, trying to discern fact from fiction. And they credit that with, critical thinking skills, finding the truth at their high achievement levels because of the thinking skills that they're using to find the truth. So, they look at all these different things, they give them all these different scenarios coming from different places, and they have to figure out what's the truth. And that when I was looking at what will students of the future need, they need to be able to find the truth. Because we are bombarded by lies consistently and constantly. And I think we need to mention that in here somewhere, that we teach students how to find the truth. Because the future is all about that, I think. But that's my opinion.
Want to name one more thing. Thank you, Carolee. On the key performance indicators for teaching and learning, I think it's a smart idea to identify the percentage of students reading on grade level by the end of the 3rd grade, 5th grade, 8th grade. And it's not just that it's 3rd grade, 5th grade, 8th grade, but it's good to make that specific. Like the top key performance indicator, percent of students achieving at proficient advanced levels. That could include just high school or just middle school or just elementary. You might miss like a weakness, but being able to be specific on where you're measuring will be able to catch that there isn't a weakness in any of our levels, whether it's at elementary, middle, or high school level. Again, you'll be able to get into all the words and all the verbiage a little cleaner, more focused, but I think it's really helpful to be specific. That's not just all students are proficient or a percentage of all students, but to track it at different levels, allow us to see different problems, different alarm bells that might go off. So thank you.
Along that same point, as you track cohorts, there's, you have a particularly good 3rd grade cohort that's at, say, 65% at reading. What are they doing the next year? Are they growing? Do they shrink? To me, that seems, then you're talking about the same students. We're not talking about district overall. There was a point made earlier about, what does a successful graduate look like? Well before I ever was involved in the school district or the school board, one of the quips that, that was always, that I would always read is that, high school diploma says that we're giving you a piece of paper that says you can read, write, do math, and know the science at a 12th grade level. And to me, that's the bare minimum. I mean, we're giving this piece of paper that tells the workforce, that tells the world this graduate can read at 12th grade level. And I think that's, critical thinking, I agree. If you can't read, you can't read the facts. You can't, that's everybody in this room knows the reading.
Yeah, but every student doesn't have the ability to do that. Every student in a public school doesn't have the ability to read at 12th grade level when they graduate. They just don't have that.
Fair point. I think a lot more than 60-some-odd% have that. Yeah.
Other comments?
With all that being said, I appreciate all the effort
yeah.
that you put into doing this stuff. So for
I
me
think
to
this
come
is
in
really
and just
pretty.
kind of nitpick is unfair, but just to consider it. Thank you for this.
Well, yeah, if that's all we have, then good on you.
Yeah,
I could feel you're just nitpicking it.
To see
Right.
it synthesized to 4 pages seems like, oh, what is this? And, recognizing, going back, again, the board established these 4 key areas last January. There were 5 different opportunities for our public, our patrons, our parents, students to provide input in the process, and hundreds of people did. And so it said, when we brought together that planning group, there were binders of information. And, yes, a lot of it, that was qualitative, and then we have the achievement data on the quantitative side, so pulling that together. So I appreciate this team doing that, the people that came together to help with the planning piece, and again, everybody who provided input. At the end of the day, this is our district's strategic plan. It's not Ken's plan. It's not, a pillar leader's plan. To Jane's point, that the structures and processes that live within this and are built should outlast all of us and ensure that we're doing great things for our students and our community. So, when President Bertrand brought this last January and talked about, he shared, I'd say, a different way of thinking about the strategic planning process than we had previously, with focusing on these areas, and then really understanding that the next step is building out the 5 years worth of plans. So we do a yearly comprehensive school improvement plan at the district level. Schools have individual plans that, again, should be much tighter and aligned directly to these areas. So if we're doing something that doesn't fall directly into helping one of these areas and move the needle, to the point that was said, should we be doing it? And I think that becomes a good guidepost for us when it comes to resources and the limited time and energy that we have. So we look forward. Ms. Joel shared that we will pull together our group cabinet level over the next couple of weeks. We meet one more time with the planning group at the end of October with the hope of, or the plan to bring this level version in a more finalized format to you to approve in November, because we're really already beginning to talk about 25-26 staffing. That leads right into the 25-26 budget, and at the end of the day, both of those should be directly aligned to this as well. And so that's the next step of the work. But if there's additional input that you think of in the next really few days, we would like that as soon as possible, because we are trying to move forward with this pretty quickly.
Anything else, board? All right, well, thank you, everybody. We will be going back into closed session, because we like to have fun like that. So I appreciate everybody coming out and joining us tonight.
You guys can we need another piece of pie. I'll put it in a wing. Just was so, I've never even considered it. And they intrigued your princess. You saw little children looking on the make sure we were following Robert. I mean, like, they were starting preschool. We're taking one of the I thought it was like preschool, but no, it's all the way. I'm gonna, because regurgitating information doesn't make you smart. Yeah. 5 minutes. Anybody in here? Using it, though.
What do we do over here?
I will, yeah. Don't touch. Denny, don't break it down. Yes, that would be amazing.
Connie, what time are we there tomorrow morning?